Today, we're going to be looking at some of the oddest FNAF games the community has ever created. From games with stories that don't make any sense, to games that are so silly it's impossible to take them seriously. Stick around because you're not gonna want to miss them. Recently, I've been covering a lot of very well-known fan games on this channel. Five Nights at Candy's, Pop Goes, and Animatronic Memories are probably names you're all familiar with. Recently, I've been looking for a FNAF game to cover that I personally had never heard of, and today I've definitely found one. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's super weird, but however, it does have its charm and an amazing story. So, let's waste no time and hop right into Tales of the Bunnyman. Tales of the Bunnyman opens with a cutscene that reminds me a lot of the old official Five Nights at Freddy's trailers, specifically Five Nights at Freddy's 2. We get several shots of the pizzeria interlaced with pieces of dialogue explaining the exposition of the story. We play as a man named Vincent Baldwin, who we later learn used to be a night guard and is one of the missing children's fathers, the father of Cassidy. We're entering the building to do some investigating and find out where our missing child went. And with our motive in mind, we're safe to head into Night 1 and start talking about what this game really has to offer. Night 1 introduces two characters, but before I start talking about them, I want to talk about the office itself. In our office, the first thing I want to get out of the way is this picture. I don't know who this is. I checked the wiki and couldn't figure out who this is. That's it. I just don't know who this is. Anyways, on to something actually important. The coolest thing I noticed about this office is that there are actually two rooms that we can move between, the typical office room and the boiler room. I'll talk more about the boiler room later when it becomes important. The door to the boiler room can be held shut, as animatronics will actually have to travel through it in order to get to your office. The only other things in our office is our camera system and a giant gift box. We can hide inside of this gift box to be able to protect ourselves from the first major threat of this night, Foxy. Foxy behaves pretty much exactly the same as in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. He starts on Pirate's Cove and makes his way through some phases before attacking. However, something unique about Foxy is he actually has two completely different attacks he can perform, each of which requires you to do something completely different to counteract him. The first attack he has is pretty simple. After he leaves Pirate's Cove, he will charge towards your office. When he does, you'll have to quickly jump inside the present until you hear him run away, after which you can jump back out and continue. His other attack is unfortunately a mechanic I've grown to dislike more and more as I play FNAF games. After leaving Pirate's Cove, Foxy has a chance to appear randomly on one of your cameras. When he does, all you have to do is find him and stare at him until he goes back to Pirate's Cove. This is mainly a me thing, but I've personally grown tired of the find them on the cameras mechanic. Yes, I do play Five Nights at Freddy's for a living, so yes, I'm going to see repeated mechanics a lot. Most sane people don't play as much Five Nights at Freddy's as I do, so most people won't find this mechanic to be that big of a deal, but hey, at least it's not a stupid fucking music box mechanic. We'll talk about that later. The only other threat introduced on this night is Bonnie. Bonnie is incredibly simple in how he works, as is typical in most FNAF games that feature him. Bonnie will make his way through the building and to your office. Afterwards, you'll be able to hear him at your door. You'll need to quickly go up to the door and hold it shut until you hear him leave like Five Nights at Freddy's 4. When you do, you'll know it's safe to reopen the door and continue the night. Very basic. That's just how we like Bonnie, isn't it, guys? Right? You like it when Bonnie's basic, right? You wouldn't want Bonnie to just hot bottom right into your office and start fingering you, would you? Freak. And with that, we can move on to the post-Night 1 minigame. Here's where we get to talking a lot about how cool this game really is. This game does narrative storytelling in a different way than any other FNAF game I've ever seen. Instead of an 8-bit minigame or a slideshow lore dump, Tales of the Bunnyman turns into a visual novel during the post-night sections, having you play in the perspective of a different character each night. I think this is actually super cool. While yes, you may think that it looks straight out of a My Hero Academia DeviantArt fan page, it is very clear that an amazing amount of care and effort went into these post-night sections, and that cannot go unnoticed. Before I really start talking about the lore of this game, I need to make it incredibly clear that there was so much poured into this story. There's so many details that I could point out that would make this video quite literally take hours to complete. And while I'd love to be able to talk about all of it, I don't have the confidence in myself to do so, and to be able to portray it in the way that it rightfully deserves. I'll be going over what happens in the story, but I won't be diving into every single minute detail, and I apologize if you were hoping that I would. Anyways, in this minigame, we play in the perspective of Jeremy Jr. Fitzgerald. After hanging out with his friends at Freddy Fazbear's, he notices that his mom has not yet come to pick him up. After waiting an extended period of time, he decides to just watch the performance on stage. Hearing a strange whistling coming from backstage, he enters to investigate, only to abruptly get abducted and murdered by the Bunny Man, going on to possess Bonnie. I honestly think that these post-night minigames are a breath of fresh air in this genre. I've never seen anything like it before, and I'd love to see more FNAF games try to do something new like this to tell their story. But now it's time for us to move on to Night 2. Night 2 only introduces one new thread, that being Chica. Chica does exactly what you'd expect her to do, and no, I don't mean eating until she pops like a balloon. What I really mean is moving through the cameras and then going to your office. Oh my fucking god, that is gross. Yuck. Fucking yuck, bro. She does go through one additional camera compared to Bonnie, making you see her less often than him, but other than that, she's exactly the same as Bonnie. I'll also use this night to talk about the only thing I dislike about this game. The mouse. Oh my god, this mouse is atrocious. Oh no, this mouse is really bad. If you're at all familiar with my channel, you'll already know that the way the mouse works is always something I'll have a problem with when fan games try to switch it up. In most FNAF games, when you move your mouse to the side of the screen will scroll in that direction until it hits the end of your office. That makes sense, and this is good. Tales of the Bunny Man instead decided to take a route similar to Sister Location. If you are to move your mouse to one side of the screen in Tales of the Bunny Man, your mouse won't follow the moving office. Instead, the game will keep track of its simulated X and Y positions in the office. And while this may sound super cool, in practice, it leads to you having to move your mouse all the way across your desk or increasing your mouse's sensitivity to be able to make up for it. Is this nitpicky? Yes. But I am giving my opinion on a game, so I think it's important to talk about things that I notice, especially when it's the main interaction mechanic in the entire game. Anyways, moving on to the post-Night 2 minigame, where we play in the perspective of Susie Sutherland. The group of friends were supposed to play the newly installed arcade game, Pop Goes vs. the Machinist? 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 I don't know. Instead, she decides to split up from the group to go look for Bonnie. Walking around the building, we can talk to a kid named Ollie, who mentions something about Bonnie acting weird recently. Given the timeline of the events this game has, I'm fairly certain that this cutscene is taking place 16 days after Jeremy's disappearance. So I think it's safe to say that Jeremy at this point in time is already inside of the Bonnie costume. During this minigame is when Susie can also find a VHS tape relating to Edwin Murray. If you couldn't already tell, this game's story is heavily entwined with the official FNAF games. Later, Susie heads over to Pirate's Cove to get a peek at Foxy, getting startled by William inside of the Spring Bonnie suit. It's at this point I need to mention two things. One, why is this specific camera in the post-nights a 3D render instead of the usual 2D drawing? And two, why is William the only character in the entire game to have voice acting? Mr. Afton, don't scare me like that.
Now, what's a missy like you doing snooping around a pirate's property?
Why is he voice acting? I'm much more curious about my second question. I was a little caught off guard when I first heard him speak, since, again, nobody in the game thus far ever has. But regardless, that's not very important. After a brief, uncomfortable conversation with Afton, we meet up with our friends again at the new arcade machine, and as we play the game, we're seen being stalked by the Bunny Man. If you couldn't already guess, Susie Sutherland goes on to possess Chica. Now it's time to talk about Night 3, which introduces one new threat, Freddy and the Marionette. Now, pause. Let's just stop for a moment and talk about Freddy first, okay? Freddy, like Foxy, has two different attacks. We'll talk about the more simple one first. Freddy will make his way through the cameras and enter your boiler room. The reason he does so is to attempt to cut the power, because doing so will allow for the Marionette to come spread your buns and lick up your crack. To prevent this from happening, we will have to enter the boiler room and hold our flashlight on his face, causing him to bug out and leave the boiler room. However, before he does, we actually get to see him creepily tilt his body. Such a small detail, but I actually really like it. Now we can talk about the other mechanic Freddy has that I originally thought was going to make me want to skin an elephant. As previously mentioned, it's clear that Freddy wants to assist in helping the Marionette grope us. So, Freddy's other attack is him going to the music box to fuck up the Marionette's sleep schedule. Fun fact, I used to work a graveyard shift at a news station, and let me tell you, you don't want to fuck with nobody's sleep schedule, bro. So, in order to save the Marionette's sanity, we must remotely shut down the music box before Freddy can finish. Moving on to the Night 3 Post-9 minigame, we play in the perspective of Fritz Smith II. Let me tell you, this guy is a big fan of Foxy. So much so that he insists on constantly talking like a pirate, something that made me want to eat my own lungs throughout my playthrough because I was writhing in cringe. A.S. the worst one. It be fixin' to be jolly. What the fuck does that mean? Fritz leaves the group to go look for Foxy. Going to Pirate's Cove, he finds a decommissioned Foxy behind the curtains. Additionally, he finds a diary written by Henry. I guess for some reason, this is where Henry goes to vent, right next to the fucked up looking robot. A little weird, Henry, but you do you, boo. Inside of the diary, we read that Henry is struggling to cope with the loss of his daughter and his theory about Jeremy and Susie's disappearances having something to do with each other. Little did he know how right he truly was. Whilst continuing to read the diary, the Bunny Man appears behind him and drags him into the back room, all while taunting him, saying that he thought he was more interested in Foxy than Henry's diary. Fritz would go on to possess Foxy. Moving on to Night 4, we get to talk about a very odd threat, Balloon Boy. Yes, for some reason, Balloon Boy is in this game. Don't question it. I guess the developer of this game just hates fun. Balloon Boy isn't a very difficult threat to deal with, thankfully, instead serving more of an annoyance, which is very fitting for his character. Balloon Boy can only appear in two rooms in the entire game, the boiler room and your backstage camera. You'll have to listen out for a vent sound cue. When you hear it, you'll have to travel to the back room and find where Balloon Boy is, because, unlike Freddy, he has multiple different locations that he can stand in. Once you find Balloon Boy, just like Freddy, all you have to do is hold your flashlight on him until he goes away. I'm really not entirely sure why Balloon Boy exists in this game. I have yet to find any story reason for it either. Maybe it's just a popular character to put into the game, or maybe I'm just reading way too much into this. I'm not really sure. But hey, let's move on to the post-Night 4 minigame. In this minigame, we play as Gabriel Collins. Gabriel sneaks into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza because he has a hunch that his missing friends are still inside. Once he enters, he searches the location, eventually discovering the Marionette. They quickly become friends and begin exploring the establishment together. Eventually, they stumble across Michael and William Afton. William is trying to convince Michael to work as a performer, playing the character of Bonnie. But before we can hear anything else, William spots us. He chases us through the building, and the Marionette hides us in its gift box. However, unfortunately for Gabriel, William finds him anyway and is knocked out. He wakes up inside of the Freddy Fazbear costume, watching William Afton jump around the dining room, mocking him through his last breaths. Gabriel would then go on to possess Freddy. This is easily one of the most fucked up cutscenes throughout the entire game. I'm no edgelord, as some people seem to think I am, but I really enjoy when games show us the depraved things that the villains do. I and many others don't want to just hear about things happening, we want to see them as well. Of course, I don't think we all want to literally see the children getting murdered, but I think showing off the situations in the way that Tales of the Bunnyman does is incredibly interesting. Next, we get to move on to Night 5, the final main night in Tales of the Bunnyman. This night adds Fredbear, an interesting but fitting final character choice. Fredbear acts as an everything character, being able to take on the role of every animatronic besides Balloon Boy and Foxy. However, unlike most everything nights that take place in other FNAF games, Fredbear is active alongside each other animatronic, adding one more layer of stress to the nights. Again, he doesn't have any unique mechanics by himself, but this time I'm honestly okay with that, only because the other characters are still active. It's at this point I want to bring up something I should have brought up a long time ago: the character designs. From what I've seen, the community seems to be pretty split on their opinions of these character designs. A lot of people love them and think that in combination with the grungy environment, it makes them look very creepy. However, on the other hand, I've seen plenty of people who think that the designs look unprofessional and seemingly come out of a game that came out many years ago. I personally have no problems with the character designs. I think they look creepy and uncomfortable. However, I do think that the texturing on the characters does look a bit odd, but nothing that I feel takes away from the immersion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, since I'm being a little meta right now, go subscribe to my new channel, Dxtr Gray. I cover non-FNAF horror games over there, and we have a lot of fun. Anyways, moving on to the final post-night minigame where we play in the perspective of Cassandra Baldwin, or better known, Cassidy. Now, noticing that she's the only member of her friend group that hasn't gone missing, she vows to figure out what happened to them and find where they all disappeared to. Entering the back room, she finds a Fredbear plushie which, throughout the game, has been shown to be able to teleport on its own, and yet, for some reason, nobody felt like that was weird at all. This is really the only gripe I have with this story, the plushie teleporting around, and multiple people know about this, yet nobody is at all a little concerned about it. On top of that, it is literally never once elaborated on or explained why this happens. I can't even draw a conclusion because there's quite literally no reason, but let's try to put that behind us for a moment and continue. We do know that the plushie is being used by Afton to lure Cassidy into the back room. Now, pause. I know I just said there's literally no reason given as to why it's teleporting, and you may be questioning why I said that even though I just stated that William was using it to lure Cassidy. However, that still doesn't explain how it was fucking teleporting, and still doesn't explain why nobody gave that a second thought. Anyways, Cassidy is successfully lured into the back room. Scared, Cassidy runs out of the pizzeria and later returns for a Halloween party. Baka! I know that's not what that says, I'm sorry. As she explores, she's found by the bunny man who presumably knocks her out after stating, "You forgot me." She awakens to find herself inside of the Fredbear costume. William explains that originally he planned to save the Fredbear costume for Henry, but decided to use it for Cassidy instead. During their conversation, it's revealed that Vincent, the character that we've been playing as in the night sections, according to William, is a terrible night guard, which would technically leave him responsible for not noticing the children's disappearances on the camera, since every action that William had been taking was done under the constant surveillance of those cameras, including what's happening right now in front of us. This would give us a perfect reason as to why he's returning to the restaurant now to find his daughter, because he didn't watch her like he was supposed to. He never saw what happened. Afterwards, we get one last cutscene. Vincent walks up to the Fredbear animatronic and realizes it's his daughter. However, he trips and falls, which leads to him getting killed by his own daughter, and Tales of the Bunnyman abruptly comes to a close. Almost. There's actually one more thing to talk about, that being Night 6, or as this game calls it, the epilogue. In it, after completing the final challenge, which is just a harder version of Night 5, we see the line, "He finally found the suit that will become his tomb, the last lingering piece of his soul." A good song never dies. With that, we get to watch William's spring lock failure and onlook as he bleeds out. We're shown that Vincent, our character, was found dead inside of Freddy Fazbear's, and several news outlets labeled him as the reason the kids were murdered. I can't lie to you guys, I'm really eager to talk about this story, since after reading into it, I actually think it's really good, and it's clear that a bunch of effort was put into it. But like I said previously, I'm just not confident in my abilities to do it for myself. I've tossed around the idea of just reading the highly detailed explanation on the wiki that was written by somebody that was far more talented than I am, but I've decided against doing that since I don't want to come off as lazy and uninspired. And as much as I hate saying this, I'd highly recommend you go to the wiki and read up on it. It's actually such an amazingly well-written story, and I think it might just be one of the best takes on the official FNAF story I've ever seen. Overall, I think Tales of the Bunnyman is an enjoyable experience. The post-night minigames are interesting, and the story is fantastic and told in a way that isn't overtly confusing like most FNAF games like to be. However, I do think that the actual gameplay mechanics are pretty lackluster. Not only does each character not really have synergy with one another, this game is also just too easy. Throughout the nights, it never really feels like the characters are becoming more aggressive, which tends to lead to boring nights where you're just waiting for the much more enjoyable minigame sections. But what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you think Tales of the Bunnyman is the most well-balanced FNAF game experience? Let me know in the comments below. In my Showman's Awakening video, I asked you guys what your favorite mechanic from a Five Nights at Freddy's game was. My favorite answer was this one by RoanQ8V. They said the turning off the light mechanic, specifically from Tyke & Sons Lumberco. I think Tyke & Sons did that mechanic really well too, so it's cool to see someone else mentioning it.
What is up, my devious little hobgoblins? A while back, I made a video on Five Nights at Wario's, and a lot of you really liked it. So much so that it is one of the most popular videos on this channel. I appreciate it. A lot of you have been asking me to cover the second game in the series, so as a token of my appreciation, I figured, why not? So sit back and listen to me, a 20-year-old grown adult, talk about a PNG game. Quick small note before we start, I recommend you watch the first video, not that you won't understand this one if you don't, but just the way that I talk about this game will reference things that I talked about in my last video, so I just recommend you go watch it, but you do not have to. Five Nights at Wario's 2, similar to Five Nights at Wario's 1, who would have thought, begins with a cutscene. Our character is walking through the woods towards his new job at WarioWare Inc. So right off the bat, I don't think that this company is the same company from Wario's 1. Upon loading in, we're greeted to our new office. I will say, this office looks marginally better than the previous one. I can actually tell what everything in this office is, so that's a plus. This time, we also have a second room that has a generator inside that we will need to use to prevent us from dying. I failed to mention this in my last Wario video, but your power drains so fast in the first game, it's not even funny. So I appreciate this addition. We also, again, have our cameras as usual. This game, however, introduces a mechanic that I actually think is really cool. Rather than having lights to see our doorways, instead we're working in a thunderstorm, and every once in a while lightning will strike, which lights up the entrances to our office for a brief moment. I think this addition is really cool and super unique. Night 1, like the first game, only has Wario and Waluigi active. The generator behind you acts as a music box the whole time, but the back room also serves another purpose. It also acts like a mask from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. There are no doors in this game. Characters will make their way to your office and come inside to attack you. When they attack, you need to quickly duck into the back room and make no noise. This means that while you're hiding from a character that's attacking, you cannot fill your generator until they leave. I think it's super interesting how they combined both of these mechanics in the same way. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I always thought that seeing the warning symbol telling you the music box was going to run out was really frustrating more than tense. However, in this game, when you're tight on time to fill the generator and you have to hide, you have to sit there and watch it go down, knowing that you could technically fill it. I feel like this addition actually makes the same exact situation feel more tense than the original. Night 1 isn't too difficult, so let's move on to Night 2. Night 2 introduces a brand new character, Toad. Toad works as the foxy character that the first game should have had. On this night, the power to the lights in the tool room stopped working, meaning that we can no longer use the cameras to see what's there. Kind of. When the lightning strikes, that camera is still illuminated for a small amount of time, like our doorways. This room is where Toad is. Like Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, Toad has multiple camera states. Once he disappears from the camera, you need to hide in the back room. You'll know it's safe to come back when you see this. As unscary as Toad looks, I think the idea of him peering in at you is actually pretty frightening. Something I've noted about Toad is that when he attacks, you don't need to be quiet. Even if he's peeking into the back room, you're still free to charge up the generator, which can definitely be a large help on those later nights. It's also really easy to tell when he's charging, as intense music will start to play before he arrives. Aside from Toad, Night 2 is all the same. I think Toad adds an extra level of difficulty to this game that the first one desperately needed, and I appreciate the successful attempt at doing so. Night 3 adds 2 new characters. The first is Mario. Back from the first game, Mario will appear in your back room. He will slowly rise from the bottom of the screen. If you stay in the back room for too long, he'll kill you. Super simple mechanic, but since every night the generator goes down faster and faster, you'll end up finding yourself needing to stay back there longer, meaning in later nights, Mario will become a real threat. The other character this night adds is Bowser. Bowser works just like Wario and Waluigi, the only difference is he attacks from the window rather than the door. When he enters your office, all you need to do is hide in the back room. Between these two, I think Mario is the more interesting character because, no fucking shit, his mechanic is actually unique. Night 4 adds another character from the first game, Peach. I'm not going to spend too long on this night because there's not a whole lot to note. Peach works exactly the same as Wario, Waluigi, and Bowser. She moves around the cameras and will attack from the door. When she does, just hide in the back room and don't make noise until she leaves. Simple and boring, I'm having an aneurysm. But this is a super early fan game, so for what it's worth, this game was technically revolutionary for its time. There aren't any new characters on Night 5, however, Mario does get an upgrade. Now, alongside being in the back room, keeping you from staying there for too long like in the first game, he'll also be in your main office and move through 3 different states before standing in your room. When he does, you'll have to hide in the back room. In all honesty, I think this is pretty stupid when you look at it logically for a second. I know you shouldn't do that in FNAF games, but fuck you, I'm gonna do it. Mario is already in the back room, and he clearly knows that you hide there. He even forces you to not hide there for too long. But now you have to hide from him. And I'm supposed to pretend like that makes any sense at all. I could keep complaining, but we have 2 more nights of this game to get through. After beating Night 5, a small cutscene plays. WarioWare got a call from an unknown source, and apparently we have to go in for another night. An end screen shows, again with another question mark, but this time Mario can be seen in the corner for an unknown reason. Sorry not sorry if that startled you. Night 6 adds nothing, it just makes the characters more difficult. As my good friend Blue Lynx would say, boo! Night 7, however, does add something. I bet you will never in a million years guess what it is. Five Nights at Wario's 2 breaks new grounds and adds another fucking music box. Why? Why do we need another music box? It makes no sense. This has to be one of the laziest bits out of any game ever released to this planet. No, this fucking solar system. Sorry. I lost my temper. That's the only new thing that's added to this night. The characters are harder again, surprise, surprise. After beating Night 7, we get a screen showing a newspaper, which I will get into later when we discuss the lore that was released in this game. Five Nights at Wario's 2 is much better than the first one, improved graphics, and semi-improved game mechanics. As much as I hate the addition of a second music box, at least this time we're required to use the cameras. Moving on to the story that this game gives us. Again, I'll be going over the contents of the phone call and trying to extract as much information as I can from them. On night 1, we're introduced to the new phone guy, who happens to be voiced by Dawko. We're told that in this game, rather than working at a factory again, we're working at a place called WarioWare Inc. This business specializes in making video games. I'm not entirely sure why a place like this would need a night guard, but let's try not to think realistically here. Dawko explains how employees claim to be seeing figures. He explains that he himself has dealt with hauntings before and that it wasn't fun. I want you to put this small comment into the back of your mind. There's not a whole lot of info given on night 2. Dawko explains to us that entities move faster in the dark. I feel like this implies that the phone guy knows exactly what it is that we're dealing with. Night 3, however, we get some juicy lore drops. Dawko tells us that the building we're in caught fire years ago, and that the only casualty was a large dragon-like creature. Obviously, this is referring to Bowser. Bowser was buried under our office, and we're told that after this fire, Wario, the man who started the WarioWare company, started up a fast food factory. This is huge. This lets us know at what point in the timeline we're in. Where we're at, Wario has already made the fast food factory, and I feel it's safe to assume that the events of the first game have already taken place. If I had to make an early assumption, I'm going to guess that the phone guy's hauntings were at the fast food factory, and I'm going to take the guess that he is the one that we played as in the last game, but that could be incorrect. That's just what I'm going with for now. On night 4, my theory starts to seem more believable. Phone guy tells us he's been in our position before. He said he worked 6 nights before the place he worked in got shut down for events. This lines up perfectly with the events of 5 Nights at Wario's 1, as we played through 6 canonical nights before the main game ended. Near the end of the call, he also stated that it's always important to have a night guard on the first week. I truthfully have no idea why he said this. Why would only the first week be an important time to have a night guard? Maybe the first week of opening makes the spirits of the workers upset because they want what they started to remain dormant after they passed? I have no fucking idea. But hopefully we'll be able to get that question answered. Night 5 has no lore drops, but we do start noticing something a bit odd about the phone guy. In this phone call, he seems less friendly and slightly less focused. He has a lot more ums in his speech, and this phone call is a lot shorter than the others. He seems upset that we've made it to the end of the week and that we get to relax on the weekend. And instead of the friendly goodbyes and good lucks that we've been used to on the previous nights, this time we're greeted with just a cold goodbye. Something is definitely wrong with him. I'm just not sure what yet. At the end of night 5, a screen full of text tells us that a mysterious call was made, a call with a request. We're not told what the request is, but this call is seemingly the reason why we had to go in for a 6th night. On night 6, we get another phone call from Dawko. The character's name isn't Dawko, by the way. I just think Dawko's voice acting is really funny and kind of bad, so I'm just calling the phone guy by the voice actor's name. I'm just a little silly, some could say, a little goofy, a little diabolical. Anyways, he reveals that the phone call was made by him. He doesn't give a reason as to why, but he did say that something tonight made them in need of a night guard. He tells us that he wants us to play a game with them. When I first heard this, I was a little confused, but I'm pretty sure he's implying that he is one of the characters that we're fighting off, but I'm not sure which one he would be. The only new characters are Toad and Bowser, but I don't see why either of those would make sense. He reiterates that he's gone through this too at a different location many years ago, and that now it's our turn. I still get the feeling that he was the security guard from the first game, but now with the information that he might be one of the characters coming after us, that theory starts to crack. He tells us that he's locked the doors to the building and will be forcing us to stay here for the night tomorrow as well. This night is also the night where we learn our character's name, that being Thomas. Clearly, whoever the phone guy is must know us. We just have to figure out how. Night 7 is the final main night of the game, and there's plenty of interesting information in the phone call. Phone guy tells us that someone has been waiting for us before seemingly passing the phone to them. Then we hear some tangled mess of sound. Reversing it reveals the following, quote, "It's time to end you. You'll play the looping game with no ends. You cannot hide. We will find you. We will locate you. We will do the same thing to you as we did to him. Soon you will be one of us. You cannot run anymore. Thomas Taylor." End quote. Alright, a few things to unpack here. First of all, I have no idea who this could be talking to us. I feel like it'd make most sense for it to be Wario, but I could be wrong. The voice says they will do the same thing to us as they did to him. I'm not sure who him could be either. My first guess was the phone guy, Dawko, and that would make sense considering the voice said that we would become one of them, just like the phone guy seems to be one of them. After completing Night 7, we're greeted with the newspaper clipping I mentioned earlier, which reads, WarioWare Inc., owner on the run. Yesterday, the owner of WarioWare Inc. escaped as the police tried to bring him to the station. Quote, "I heard someone screaming from the factory, so I called the police," end quote, says witness Matt Parker. The police arrived shortly after, only to be met by a man storming out of WarioWare Inc. with signs of scars in his face. As he ran, he dropped the phone he was carrying that contained a bloody hand mark. The police immediately followed his footsteps, trying to catch up with him. Shortly after, the newly hired Thomas Taylor came out of the factory too, claiming he had been locked inside the building for 24 hours. The police continued their search the whole night. The man has yet to be found. So, from this clipping, we know that the phone guy is the owner of WarioWare Inc. I actually have an idea of who he could be. If you haven't noticed, Luigi is absent from this game. He is never seen. I get the idea that the phone guy could be Luigi, but if that's the case, that throws the idea of the phone guy being the security guard from the first game out the window, because obviously Luigi was an active character in that game. By the way, I'm very aware that there's a video made by the creator of the Wario games going over all the lore. I just think it's much more fun to try to figure it out myself as I go along. But that's the end of Five Nights at Wario's 2, as I can tell. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below, and if you think it's better than the first one, which should be a unanimous yes, by the way. In the last video, I asked you all what your favorite mechanic from any Five Nights at Freddy's or Five Nights at Freddy's fan game was, and why. My favorite comment is this one by Joker of Spades. Congratulations on the second favorite comment, by the way. They chose Dee Dee from Ultimate Custom Night, which threw me off at first, but after listening to what they had to say, they explained that they like Dee Dee because out of nowhere Dee Dee will appear, adding a random character, and it will be up to you to figure out who it is fast enough to be able to begin dealing with them while also dealing with the chaos of every other animatronic. And that actually made me think, and I kind of agree, it's a really cool mechanic, and I think more things should be done like that in future FNAF games.
When you think of the best FNAF games, what games do you think of? What are your top 5 in terms of quality alone? I'm willing to bet that a lot of people share some of the same entries, and I'm willing to bet that the game we'll be talking about today is at the top of some of your lists, because it's definitely at the top of mine. The Glitched Attraction is a FNAF fan game developed by 2 18-year-old developers alone. The reason I mention their age is because of how impressive this game really is, and how impressive it is that only 2 brand new adults managed to design it themselves. When I first learned how old these guys were, I was shocked. The Glitched Attraction is one of the best FNAF games I've ever played. I know a few of you watch my content to get suggestions for FNAF games to play, and for those of you that do not pass this one up. It is one of the most high-quality experiences of all time. Let's not waste any more time and hop into the Glitched Attraction, FNAF's most high-quality FNAF game ever made. Our game begins with us getting a text from a friend asking us to come check out the new Fazbear escape room attraction, and they tell us to bring all of our things along with us. A request that is definitely weird, but since when has weird ever meant bad in a FNAF game before, am I right? So we do just that, pack up all of our things and set out. You heard it here first. The Glitched Attraction is seriously a
recreate Five Nights at Freddy's escape room, a concept that sounded so cool I couldn't not check this game out, and I'm glad I did. We arrive at the attraction and two helper bots explain what's going to happen, and then we have to give over everything we have. Why the fuck did we bring everything we own if we're just going to give it to some random robots? This is pretty fishy smelling, and I should know because I haven't showered in 8 weeks. With the general rules explained, we continue onto the first section of the escape room as chipper as we can be. We're kicking our feet and heel clicking and shit, we're so giddy. Not knowing what we're getting ourselves into, we can dive into the first room of the glitched attraction. The first room has us in a room similar in style to the bedroom from Five Nights at Freddy's 4. This room, being the first, isn't very difficult, but let me go over the 4 threats you can find in this room. While you're trying to think, focus, and not be a fuck-up, Nightmare Balloon Boy will be sitting on a chair, because his fat ass wouldn't ever dream of helping anyone, but would instead prefer to sit there and be pointless. But sometimes, he gets a little antsy. You can tell when he's like this because he will visibly seize in his chair until you shine your flashlight at him. It's weird that doing this causes his seizure to stop though, because when I quickly shined a flashlight in my epileptic friend's eyes, he went comatose on the ground and started foaming at the mouth. But to each their own, I guess. If you don't aid in Balloon Boy's assisted suicide, he will jump off the chair and kill you. Something interesting I noted is that Balloon Boy actually makes no noise when he shakes or even when he jumps off of his chair, leading to a majority of his jump scares feeling really awkward. I get why he doesn't make any noise, because it'd be way too easy to not lose track of him, but just something I thought I'd bring up. You'll realize there's a giant window in this room as well, which lets you see outside. Occasionally, you'll be able to see Nightmare Fredbear stalking you from between the trees. Little does he know that his eyes are actually signal beams as bright as those stupid fucking white LEDs that are now being put onto vehicles, so that when I'm driving at night, everybody's headlights look like they have their fucking brights on. So when I flash my brights at them indicating to turn theirs down, then they actually turn their brights on, which simulate what I can only imagine to be the lights of God. And then I feel like an asshole because I just flashed a guy who didn't have their brights on. Sorry to go off on a tangent like that. I just really had to get my frustration about LEDs on cars out of the way, and I really didn't have a good outlet to do so. Anyways, you'll see Fredbear slowly inch closer to your window throughout the challenge, and when he gets super close, you'll have to close the curtains until you hear him laugh, signaling to you that he's gone away, and then you can reopen the curtains. Why on earth do you not just choose to keep the curtains closed for the whole time then? I have no idea. It's not like we need the moonlight to see. The bots at the beginning gave us a fucking flashlight, but whatever, I guess. Speaking of your flashlight, little tiny stupid insignificant Freddles will periodically appear around your room. They make the same noise as they do in FNAF 4, so hearing them shouldn't be a problem, especially considering how god-awful annoying they sound. Shine your flashlight at them and bada bing bada boom, they go away. But if you let 3 stay in your room and assault your eardrums for too long, 2 of them will grab either one of your butt cheeks as the third dives headfirst into your rectum, which some of you sick fucks may find pleasing, but I for one do not. The final threat you have to worry about is Night Marionette. If you somehow, by some miracle, haven't noticed in the footage I've been showing on screen so far, there is a giant hole busted into the wall of the room, which is very poorly boarded up. Why is it boarded up? I hear you asking. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, it's only because, Satan is in there with enough tentacles to make hentai for the next 9,000 years. But, putting that thought aside, Night Marionette will occasionally give a sound cue to let you know she's there. If you look at the hole, you'll be able to see those sex toys, tentacles, creeping out. At this point, you'll need to make a mad dash to the Golden Freddy suit, which is conveniently placed in the room with you, and hide inside of it. Once you do so for long enough, Night Marionette will leave. Now, hold on. I'm not done talking about this stupid fucking Golden Freddy costume yet. I have some complaining to do, if you could imagine. This Golden Freddy suit takes about, 2 fucking decades to put on. I'm not kidding. You will feel like this game is broken or has paused as you are putting this fucking thing on. But if that wasn't enough, taking it off is somehow even worse. Rather than just exiting the costume, instead, the game thought it would be a great idea to have you teleport out of the costume, where you think you'd be able to continue moving around and interacting with things. But no, that'd be too convenient. Instead, once you teleport out of the costume, you have to just stand there for about 4 seconds doing absolutely nothing. No moving, no using your flashlight, just standing there like a dunce as time still passes around you. While in the Golden Freddy costume, did you happen to notice that Balloon Boy was tweaking out? Okay, cool. Night Marionette's gone. Let's quickly exit the costume and flash Balloon Boy. Oh, wait! Instead of flashing Balloon Boy, i.e. saving your own life, let's instead stand there like we have an iron deficiency for 5 fucking minutes as Balloon Boy twerks his fat jiggly ass all over his goddamn chair. I really needed to get that out of my system. Surely I won't have to complain for the rest of the video now, right? Anyways, how do we actually beat this room's challenge? Good question. You'll notice on the wall there's a picture of Freddy broken up into pieces, with each piece facing a different direction. You can turn each piece in order to make the picture look normal again, but you'll notice that one of the pieces is missing. On the dresser, you'll see the FNAF 4 box that Scott Cawthon wiped his ass with. Of course, it has 2 locks. You can find one of the keys to the locks in a drawer on the dresser, and the other key in the drawer of your nightstand. Using both of these keys to unlock the locks on the box, bars, opens it, revealing the last piece of the Freddy puzzle. You can take that piece and put it back in place to finish the puzzle, revealing a 6-digit code. Quick tip, this number is randomized every time you play it, so no fast speed running for you, sucker. Going back to the nightstand, you can open a door to reveal a safe. You punch that 6-digit code into the safe, open it, and find a hammer. You can then use this hammer to take the nails off the wooden boards covering the closet door, then open the closet door and escape the bedroom. Do keep in mind that as you are trying to do this, you are getting fucked from all angles by about 179 different pieces of fuck. But overall, I think this is by far the easiest room to complete, which is probably how it should be given the fact that we have a lot more rooms to go through. Speaking of, let's get to the next one. The next room is much larger than the previous. This time there are only 3 threats: Toy Chica, Mangle, and the Cupcake. This room is basically a big circle. Chica will walk around the circle patrolling for you. If you get in her line of sight, she will start to chase you. If she catches you, she will throw the meanest right hook I've ever seen since Muzi. You can hide in any of the several lockers lining the walls, but be aware that not all lockers can open. And if you want to know something super awesome, which lockers open are randomized each time you play. Meaning if you lose a run, some of the lockers you hid in before probably will be locked this time. Isn't that awesome? The Cupcake will also patrol around, but he is much less important. He himself can't end your run, but if you're not watching him and accidentally step on him, he will squeak, causing Chica to be alerted to your exact location. For me personally, I hate this type of mechanics in games. I want to note I don't think they're bad mechanics, I just don't like them. When there's a puzzle, I would like to be able to focus on the puzzle without having to worry about being chased at the same time. It also doesn't help that I don't handle being chased very well in any game, period. But it definitely doesn't help when I'm trying to focus on solving a puzzle on top of that. Just a me thing. But if that wasn't enough for my poor heart to handle, we have Mangle tacked on top of that. Mangle is hiding in the ceiling throughout the challenge. Occasionally, you will hear vent noises. When you do, that's when you know Mangle is about to drop down on yo ass. She has 2 possible drop locations. If you hear the vent noises on a side of the room that you're not on, you can safely ignore her as long as you don't then move to the side she's on. But if you hear her on a side of the room that you are on, you have 2 options. You can either A, move to the other side of the room, which might be a problem if Chica is over there, or B, hide in a locker. If you don't hide and Mangle happens to see you when she drops down, she will start to chase you. And unlike Chica, when Mangle chases you, there's no way to make her stop. At that point, even hiding in a locker won't be enough to be able to protect your cheeks. So, about the puzzle I was bitching about earlier. You'll notice a large door locked via a pin. The pin is 6 digits long and consists of 6 different symbols. Around the dark room, you'll have to find sticky notes on the walls that correlate each symbol to a number, which will give you the code order needed to unlock the door. If you couldn't have guessed, yes, this is also randomized each time you play. Simply find all the notes, type in the code, and you're done. Come on, you didn't really fall for that, did you? That was way too easy. This is a FNAF game, remember? And according to the FNAF game dev rules, difficulty equals quality. So let's make this as hard as possible. After opening up the door and flipping 4 switches to turn the power to the room on, a whole new world of fuck opens up to us, including a brand new threat, Withered Freddy. Withered Freddy sits inside of a music box, which I find weird because the marionette is literally in this room. I don't know why they didn't just use her for this mechanic, but whatever. Freddy's music box will slowly wind down, and if you don't keep it wound up, he will right hook, shatter the glass, hop out, and chase you. Just like Mango, there's no hiding. If you hide inside of a locker, Freddy will stand outside of it and wait for you to come out. And when you do, you guessed it, he eats your ass. But because the devs of this game hate their players, if you wind Freddy's music box up too much, he will also shatter the glass and then shatter your sphincter. Cool. As if this wasn't hard enough for poor old Dxtr to handle. What do we have to do now? Well, inside of the room you opened, there's some shit on the wall and we need to find some gears to make the contraption work. Again, you will just walk around the room and find all the needed gears and put them back in their place. Once you do, a door on the opposite side of the room will open and you'll have to make a sprint of fate over to it. And then finally, the room is complete. This room isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I actually really like the concept of adding another threat halfway through. I just personally hate it for reasons stated earlier, but that's just a skill issue on my part. Moving on. Do you like complex things? Well boy, do I have a treat for you. The third room challenge is a nightmare. Let's waste no time and do a Tolarian Community College level threat assessment. This room has 4 threats: Springtrap, Dreadbear, Phantom Foxy, and Phantom Balloon Boy. Phantom Balloon Boy is simple, so let's cover him first. He works just as he does in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. He can randomly appear on any of the cameras. If you look at him on the camera for too long, he will jump scare you and cause a video error. Except the video error in this game just means that the camera he jump scared you on can never be used again for the rest of the run, which I promise you is a very bad thing, and the reason will be revealed later. Phantom Foxy can appear in any of the 2 doors connecting to your office. If you look at him for too long, he will charge at you and jump scare you, causing a level of hallucinations to appear. If too many levels of hallucinations appear at once, it's game over. Now, let's talk about the real threats of this night: Springtrap and Dreadbear. Dreadbear can be seen on the cameras and will attack either one of your doors. Do note that you can close these doors and they each have their own power supply. But Dreadbear is unaffected by the doors and will break them down if they're in his way. You'll have to watch the cameras to see which door he will be attacking, and when you see him charging towards one, you will have to hide under the desk on the opposite side of the desk to where he is coming from in order to stay out of his line of sight when he enters your office. Eventually, he will leave and you'll be safe to come back out. Springtrap is a goofy little thing, to say the least. Springtrap will climb through any of 3 vents, which you can see on the cameras. 2 vents bring him to your respective office doors, and the 3rd leads to the vent that is directly above you. If you see Springtrap climbing through a door vent, you will have to simply close the door to the side he's going towards. If you see him climbing through a vent that brings him to the top of your office, you'll need to quickly turn off the power to the office and hide under your desk. He'll drop down, and once he can't see you because the lights are off, he will leave. You got all that down? Good. Because we have a whole load more of fuck to talk about next. That being, how do we escape this room? Well, the goal is to open a tiny vent near the ground beneath the TV screen. To start, you'll want to check near the desk to look for a code. It's random every time, and where it appears next to the desk is also random every time, so have fun. Once you get the code, you head over to the TV screen and press Developer Mode, and then type in the code you found in your office. This lets you activate Developer Mode, which opens up a door on the wall revealing a token. Keep in mind, all of the threats are active at this time. Using the token, you pop that puppy into the big arcade machine in your office, which promptly starts up a game. That's right, while defending yourself from an onslaught of fuck, you will also have to play an entirely other game at the same time. The game in question, Save the Children, is really just a bunch of fetch quests. To start, you'll talk to Balloon Boy, who is fishing and says he needs some balloons. By the way, if you couldn't have guessed, all of the items that you'll be collecting in this minigame will be in a random location every time you play, because God hates you. When you bring the balloons back to Balloon Boy, he will give you one of the fish he caught. Then you need to find Old Man Consequences and give him the fish, since the pond he's fishing in doesn't have any. Once you give him the fish, he gives you a lily pad for some fucking reason. Don't question it. We don't have time to question it because I neglected to mention there's a fire spreading through the building as you're escaping, and if you take too long, it will reach your office and kill you. No, I'm not joking. Oh, and again, keep in mind, all of the threats I mentioned are still pulverizing your butthole. Once you have the lily pad, you'll take it back to Balloon Boy's pond and use it as a bridge to talk to this fucking robot thing. The robot says its watch is broken, so fuck you, go look for a clock. Once you find the clock and bring it back to the robot, he gives you a penguin, I think is what that thing is. Then you take the penguin over to Lolbit, who gives you a key to unlock a gate, which then leads you to an area where you need to unlock another gate. Yes, this minigame is still happening right now. You spelunk into a cave and talk to some dude who thinks the cave is too dark. You then have to leave the cave and go look for a torch, head all the way back and give the torch to him. He will then give you a key to unlock the other gate, and when you do, you'll exit the area, leading to a William Afton cutscene where he goes sicko mode inside of his Springlock suit. And finally, you have to sit there and wait as the game reboots. Again, we're on a time crunch, so your butthole will probably be puckered at this point. Again, threats are still up the wazoo right now, so don't get comfortable. Once the system reboots, you'll get another 5-digit code which you can use to unlock a box on the office desk which reveals a key. You then use the key on a keyhole in the fucking wall for some reason, and at this point, no matter how much time you have left, the game will start to count down from 6. Once the fire reaches your office, the small vent I mentioned at the beginning of this room will finally open, and you'll be free to crawl through it, but not before Springtrap lunges out and grabs your ankle with lust in his eyes and shit. You quickly close the vent and decapitate that bitch, and finally, you complete the room. Holy shit, this room gave me a panic attack and made me shart my pants. Shall we begrudgingly move on to the next room? I think so. Let's keep this gravy train rolling. Do you enjoy having headaches? If you do, this next room is for you. Let's go over it together. I'll hold your hand. This room is made up of 2 hallways, 2 windows, and a bunch of screens, a small elevator, and a life-size 7-foot-tall circus baby animatronic. The goal of this room is to put baby back together, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first go over the threats this room has to offer. The first threat is Ballora. At times you will hear her music box begin to play. Depending on which side of the room you hear the music coming from, you'll need to go over to that side's hallway and press an electric shock button that will electrify the doorway, shocking Ballora and making her go away. If she gets in, I'm guessing you can figure out what happens next. Ballora is the easiest threat. What else is there? Well, the 2 other threats are Funtime Foxy and Funtime Freddy. Occasionally, you will hear a gurgling sound cue, letting you know something is wrong with either Foxy or Freddy. You will have to run over to the windows and turn on the light to their room to see where they are. Starting with Foxy, if you see him doing the thug shaker on stage, you just press his shock button, and he will go back to how he's supposed to be. Be careful though, if you shock him too many times for no reason, he'll eat your ass like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Freddy, on the other hand, is slightly different. His light button doesn't work. Similar to Sister Location, while looking at him, occasionally sparks will fly out of the wires in his room, briefly illuminating. In this small window of time, you'll be able to see where Freddy is located. He will slowly make his way towards the window, and if he gets too close, you guessed it, ass in his mouth, eating it like a cupcake. If you see Freddy getting too close for comfort, you press the tape symbol button, which will make Bon Bon tell Freddy to get the fuck back on stage. And he promptly will. Again, like Foxy, if you push the tape button too many times for no reason, it's time for the bite of 87 on your asshole. Now, back to putting Baby back together to complete the night. You'll notice that Baby is missing both arms and both legs. The first thing you'll need to do is find the Baby chip hidden on the desk somewhere and plug it into the monitor. For some reason, we don't plug it into a computer, but I guess that's not really important now, is it? Once the monitor comes on, we need to call for Baby's different pieces, starting with her arm. The general goal is to get each piece of her delivered and then fuse each of them to her body. Before I get to the fusing part of this process, let me bitch about the delivery process. So obviously, delivering the parts will take time, which isn't what we want because, as usual, we're on a timer here. And because of it, the devs thought it would be oh so funny to have some of the pieces come in broken. And once you put them on and try to fuse them, only then it will tell you it is broken and won't work. And you'll have to take the piece back off, return it, which also takes time, and then order and wait for another piece to be delivered. Why was this necessary, guys? What neuron fired off in your brain that made you think, how can I be Satan today? Anyways, let's talk about fusing, because this is really where the headache of this challenge comes into play. starting with fusing the head, which for some reason wasn't already fused on, even though the challenge started with her head already being on her body. In order to fuse baby's body parts back to her torso, you have to complete a small minigame. For her head, it's basically just Simon Says, but with numbers instead of colors. But don't worry, the devs weren't just being nice and thinking about colorblind people. We'll get to that in just a minute. This is by far the easiest and least time-consuming part to fuse, but if you mess up a pattern once, you'll have to completely restart the head fusing process. Let's move on to her arms. The minigame for both arms are the same. The goal of this minigame is to divert power from the left side of the screen to the right. You do this by turning a bunch of 90-degree lines and 180-degree lines in order to make a consistent path from left to right. This sounds easy, but holy fucking shit, knowing you're on a time crunch and dealing with 30 pounds of dick in your ass at the same time definitely doesn't make this a smooth process. Do that for both arms and you're on to legs, the part that makes people like me want to die. In order to fuse the legs, you have to play a color matching game. You will see two grids of colors, one grid where you can change the colors and on the other you cannot. You have to copy it. Let's get the big elephant out of the room. If you're colorblind or deficient like I am, this challenge is borderline impossible. I'm lucky enough to not be completely colorblind, or I would never have beaten this in my entire life. But not only that, but the grid each time has a missing square, as I'm sure you've noticed, but I'm also sure you've noticed that missing square on your side and the missing square on the side you're supposed to copy are in different locations. That's because they rotated the fucking grid. Talk about a headache, am I right? Maybe I'm just brain dead when it comes to this, but trying to comprehend where each color should go when it's rotated was just not a fun experience at all. I'm not even going to lie to you. But once you finally finish fusing all of baby's pieces back together, a voice will come over the speakers telling you that all of the animatronics have been deactivated, and that you should exit through the hall on your right. When you do, you'll be led to the sister location elevator. Getting inside, it will slowly descend and then stop. You'll hear something laughing at you for a while, and then the elevator will suddenly drop and you die. The end. Game over. Okay, not really. That's just the transition to the next room. Are you ready? Because I sure as fuck aren't. Why did we agree to come to this place? It makes no sense. How does this place even exist? I could have died a solid 276 times at this point, and we're not even done yet. Someone needs to get this place investigated by the FBI because this is some bullshit. What a waste of a Saturday, am I right? Anyways, let's move on. After laying on the floor for approximately 8 days, we finally wake up from the fallen elevator. We walk past a large window and see the characters we just went up against. After the events of the last room, these little tiny robot things apparently grabbed all of the characters to bring them to the scooping room. And this room is presumably that. While we look across the floor of once familiar corpses, the bane of my existence and the shit in my diaper emerges from the tangled mess of wires. Ennard. This guy is the single reason why it took me so long to make this video, why it took me a month to beat this game. For most, it certainly wouldn't have taken this long, but for me, oh my lord, this next room will give me flashbacks like Charlie in the Trees for the next 5 decades, and possibly until I reach my grave. Remember the second room? How I mentioned I don't handle being chased very well? This room made me question if I would be able to continue making videos on this channel, or if I would have to jump ships to another genre to make review videos about. I'm not kidding, not even a little bit. I originally intended to beat this game on stream on Dxtr Black, and you can still see my first stream about this game where I gave up on room 2. Well, for the people who tuned into that stream, know now I didn't give up. But you should also be grateful that I didn't stream this entire process because I spent tens of hours trying to beat this next room alone. Let me explain why. Room 5 is the epitome of everything I hate in a horror game. Literally all the way down to the last detail. I'll give you a warning right now. This is 100% a me problem and is totally my subjective opinion. So, the only threat in this room is Ennard. Thankfully, there aren't any more, but dear lord, Ennard is all it needs. In terms of where we are story-wise, the elevator crashing was definitely not intended to happen, as upon beginning this room, we don't get a monitor telling us what our goals are. This is cool as a passing thought, but it's not really cool when you stop to think that there is absolutely nothing to explain what it is I need to do to complete the challenge. Upon beginning, we're given a wind to power flashlight and some writing on the wall telling us to light up a solar panel using the flashlight. Now, I'm already going to pause real quick. We're being shown a new mechanic, the wind up flashlight and solar panel. Cool. Now tell me, do you suspect we need to light up solar panels ever again in this entire challenge? Or the entire game? I'm assuming you said yes, but you'd be completely wrong. No, there's not a single other solar panel in this entire game. So please, tell me, why the fuck were we shown this? Showing us the flashlight makes sense, but there were countless other ways to do it in a much better way than showing us another mechanic that is never used again. This is exactly like the gun in Muzi. But continuing, once we light the solar panel, a large door opens and the challenge truly begins. The overall goal of this challenge is probably the easiest we've seen so far. It's broken up into 5 distinct tasks. Step 1, find a crowbar. Step 2, use the crowbar to force open a drawer near Kyle's desk to get a keycard. Step 3, use Kyle's keycard to open a door, allowing you to turn a generator on that powers computer monitors throughout the room. Step 4, find all 3 computers and input 3 colored fuses into each. The fuses are conveniently placed in boxes right next to the computers, so I appreciate that. And step 5, go back to the generator and turn on the central power, which opens the door, allowing you to climb a ladder and beat the challenge. Sounds simple, right? Well, yes. It is simple, but now I need to talk about the problem. Ennard. Ennard will be patrolling the giant maze of a room the entire time you are performing these tasks. If he sees you, he will begin to chase you. If you get caught, you will lose all progress you've made throughout the challenge. Let me tell you another fact. Unlike every room in this game so far, this room ain't small. No, this room is very fucking large. I hate everything about life. Let me complain about some more stuff. If you are near Ennard, he will hear you and be alerted to you if you do the following. Wind up the flashlight. Makes sense. It's really loud. I can understand that one. If you run. Okay, yeah. I've seen that in other games before. Running is louder than walking is, and walking. That's right. If you move, period, while he is anywhere remotely close to you, he will hear you and start to chase you. What the fuck? And once he starts chasing you, there's only 2 ways to get him to stop. The devs must have been smoking crack and playing Dead by Daylight while they were designing this section, because one of the methods used to escape an Ennard chase is by knocking over wood pallets placed around the room. Quickly break the pallets and continue to chase you if you don't hot bottom out of there at light speed. What's the second way of escaping a chase? I hear you asking? Well, it's by stunning Ennard. How do you stun Ennard? I hear you asking again. That's a great question. I have no fucking idea. I'm not joking. I literally have no fucking clue on earth how, on God's green fuck, you're supposed to stun Ennard. How do I know you can stun him? Well, every time you die, which, judging by the fact it took me borderline a month to beat this challenge, I did quite frequently, you will get a tip on the loading screen. One of these tips tells you that stunning Ennard will give you more time to run away than knocking over a pallet will. So I know you can, but the game doesn't elaborate on how to do that as far as I'm aware. So to this day, I still have no idea how to stun Ennard. I don't know what the hell the game is talking about. I'm stumped. But I'm not even close to done talking about this section of the game. No. I spent a fucking month on this. I can dedicate a few pages of my script to it. You can sit down and listen. I don't care if this video ends up being an hour long. You see, there is a very large, steaming hot, glaring issue with this challenge in specific. Since it's technically not a part of the canonical attraction, there's no tip screen at the beginning. But with no tip screen, there's no telling anyone fuck about fuck. So, as I said, there are 3 computers around the level. Each computer has a box of fuses with differently colored patterns on them right next to them. Each computer requires 3 different fuses. How do you figure out which fuses go where? Well, at first I looked at the colors of the wires going into the computer. I thought, maybe this will give me a hint as to what I'm supposed to do. So I tried to grab the fuses out of the box, but I couldn't. So then I thought, oh, maybe these aren't the fuses, and the actual fuses are randomly placed around the map. So I went to look. I looked, and I looked, and I looked, but I never found any fuses. Eventually, I died for probably the 48,000th time to see a tip appear on my screen. You won't be able to pick up fuses until you turn on the monitors. You didn't think to tell me that? You didn't think that was important information to give out earlier? This is why we need the fucking tip screen, asshole. But fuck me, whatever, sure. So then I started trying to figure out how to turn the monitors on. I tried seeing if I could press the buttons on the monitors, but that didn't work, so then I decided to try and find something else to do. Eventually, I found a note next to a door mentioning that Kyle leaves a keycard in his desk to open said door. Okay, cool. Something to do has just fallen into my lap. Let's go find Kyle's desk. Luckily for me, desks are in the same location every time you play, so we don't have to worry about those being randomized. After looking for a very long time, because again, I don't handle being chased well at all, it's like I fucking lock up and start freezing. I don't know what's wrong with me, I just can't handle it. So, most of the gameplay boiled down to me moving incredibly slowly and taking way more time than I ever needed to complete this challenge. But that's how I personally had to do this if I wanted to play it myself, which is also why the footage you're watching right now isn't mine. Thank you, Kono and Indie Fuel. I eventually find Kyle's desk to then find another note from Kyle mentioning that you need a crowbar to be able to open his drawer with the keycard in it. Fuck me. So, after searching for another 100 years, I find the crowbar on a desk and use it to open the drawer to get the keycard. 400 hours and 2,000 deaths later, I use the keycard to open the door and find the generator inside. Flip the switch and boom, the computers are now on. Now, 5,000 deaths later, I finally get to the point where I can pick up the fuses and match the correct fuses to the one shown on the screen. After 25,000 deaths, I managed to correctly match the fuses of all 3 computers. Keep in mind, every time I die, I have to completely restart this entire process, all the way back to shining the flashlight at the solar panel. I'm on the verge of death. So finally, I make it back to the generator to turn it on and finish this godforsaken challenge. And I do, expecting the door next to it to open. It doesn't. Come in real close for me. Come in real close. This fucking door needs a separate key that spawns randomly in the level. I'm going to clench my teeth together so hard that they shatter into a fine powder. This right here is what took me the longest. So finally, after 100,000 deaths, I finally get the key to the generator to unlock the door. Come on real close again for me, real close one more time. Take a guess what's in this room. Is it the exit to let me move on to the next challenge? No, it's just fucking lore. I didn't know this while I was playing. I don't watch videos about the games I play, so I had no idea what was behind this fucking door. I know that's 100% my fault, but dear God, when I tell you how fucking pissed I was when I finally figured out this after hours upon hours of attempts, I was fucking livid. I wish I was recording my attempts so I could show you my reaction. You wanna know what happened after a reasonable crash out in this room? Ennard fucking walked in and killed me, making me start from the beginning again. Once again, I wasn't recording. However, this exact same thing happened to Markiplier, so I'll show you footage of this happening to him instead.
Good. I was about to say, if that guy could have come in here, I would have been so mad. How could you ever get me in here?
The amount of vulgarities that emerged from my lungs at a speed of Mach 50 in that moment was astronomical, enough to shake trees and shatter the sound barrier. I was fucking livid. But again, I know full well that this entire section, this entire 4 pages of my script is an experience that only I have had. Nobody else on Earth struggled with this challenge as much as I did. Nobody in history has ever spent a calendar month pouring attempts into this section of a game that should only take 20 minutes to complete. I know it's a skill issue, and a very hard skill issue at that, but I could not, under any circumstance, neglect to mention how bullshit of an experience I had. I hope you enjoyed this segment. I eventually found the door to the generator, opened it, and climbed up the ladder into the next challenge of this godforsaken fuck-ass game. From one anxiety attack to another, let's talk about room 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's how many threats we have to talk about in this level. Awesome segue, Dxtr. Thanks, Dxtr. The first threat we'll talk about is Molten Freddy. Molten Freddy can appear in one of 2 vents occasionally. When you hear or see him in one, you'll have to break your mouse and spam click a lever in the vent to blind him with a light more powerful than the sun. Every time you flash him, he gets slightly pushed back, which leads to you spending an infuriating amount of time spamming the fucking lever to make him go away. The next threat is Scrap Baby. As I'm sure you've noticed, we're locked inside a fenced area. On the outside of the fence is a forest, and occasionally you'll be able to see Baby limping her way out from between the trees towards your fence. When she gets to the fence, she'll hop that shit like an Olympic athlete and fuck your shit up. To stop her, you must go to this random screen in the wall and activate the repel system, which plays the most ear-piercing sound I've ever heard in my entire life. So I totally understand why that makes baby go away. The final threat is Scrap Trap, who in my opinion is the stupidest looking FNAF character ever designed. You can see Scrap Trap sitting on a chair down a long hallway. You must watch him closely as he will slowly start to move until his head is eventually in an upright position. When it is, you must use the same screen you used for baby, but instead close the door and use the call system to lure him to you. After waiting what will feel like an eternity, you will be able to hear him stand up from the chair and sprint like Usain Bolt towards the door, and pound on it like he's on speed. Then he will go back to the chair and you can open the door and turn off the call system. By the way, the call system is also the worst sound I've ever heard in my whole life. Thank you for asking. That may not sound all bad, but having to deal with all three of these fuckers and do the other bullshit we have to do, I promise it will become difficult to manage. So what is it we have to do? Well, the goal is to remove the chains from a fence gate so that we can open it. Simple enough. To start, you'll notice another screen different from the one used to defend yourself. On it, you'll find the opening minigame from Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator. You will need to complete 4 levels of this game, which in and of itself isn't a hard challenge, but when the music is pretty loud, listening for the other characters can be a problem, especially when Scrap Trap doesn't make any noise until it's already too late. After beating this game, you will unlock a prize that we can't access at this moment, so we'll get back to it in a second. Afterwards, you'll need to look around your surroundings to find 2 pieces of paper with a number ranging from 1 to 3 on them, accompanied by a silhouette of a FNAF character. You can use these pieces of paper to input a code into this little toy thing. I don't know what this thing is, if I'm being honest. You only need 2 pieces of the code because you can just brute force the last one. After getting the code correct, a key will emerge. Take that key and run down the hall and unlock a door to the right of Scrap Trap. This is personally where I think this level gets specifically hard, since we'll be spending most of our time in here now, meaning we won't be able to hear Scrap Trap and Molten Freddy. So if you forget to check on them, it's basically GG's. Inside this new room, we can finally obtain the prize we got from beating the Pizzeria Simulator minigame, a Faz coin. You'll notice a projector that's projecting a cut-up piece of paper on the wall. If you pull a lever on the same wall, this tiny little Freddy I can't remember the name of will try to read the projection. But he obviously won't be able to do so because it's only a small piece of a paper, you fucking idiot. Using the Faz coin, you can go back into Scrap Trap's room and insert it into Rockstar Freddy's stomach, and then press 3 buttons on his body in an order listed on a piece of paper. This makes sense, by the way. This will cause his mouth to open, revealing the other pieces of paper you need. Slap those bitches on the projector and put them together like a puzzle, which, side note, is a pain in the ass for no reason. The controls are super janky. Slap the lever with your big Coke can penis, and have bitch Freddy read it. When he does, a door next to Rockstar Freddy will open with some bolt cutters inside. You can use these bolt cutters to cut the chains off of the fence and escape this level. This level might not seem as difficult as some of the other ones have, and while none of these levels are particularly difficult in terms of what you literally have to do, all of the levels, and this one specifically, build up so much stress and really test your nerve control. After jumping down some weird looking cellar door, we enter a new room with a computer in it. It shows an error that it detected human movement. Obviously, we just entered the room, of course. While reading through the files on the computer that detail a plan to revive someone through our corpse, another human detection error shows up on screen. Knowing that we haven't moved, we turn around and get our shit smacked up by Vanny and get knocked out. Fun fact, you can actually spot Vanny spying on you in almost every other level in the game if you're looking closely enough. Just something cool I thought I'd bring up. We wake up to Vanny dragging us into an unknown room. And rather than me explaining what happens next, I'd rather just show you. Afterwards, we walk through what appears to be memories of the Bite of 87 events, and the game comes to a close. So, from a lore perspective, we were lured to this attraction by Vanny. You may remember at the beginning of the game we got a text from a friend telling us how cool this attraction is, and in the secret lore room, which turns out to be Vanny's secret room, she has a whiteboard full of steps on how to use remnants. One of the steps involves sending a message to someone, seemingly to lure them in, and what do you know, we got a message to come here. Also in that secret room is a tape that can be watched going over how to extract remnant from people. So what the goal seemingly was, using my enormous brain of theorization, the plan was to lure us to the attraction, extract remnant from us in order to give power to William Afton, which is what we are seeing happen in the final cutscene. Case closed. I'm a genius. But as far as I'm aware, that's all the glitched attraction has to offer. Although this game put me through 4 brain aneurysms and a heart attack, I still think it is one of the most impressive FNAF fan games ever made. The amount of detail, skill, and effort put into this is only matched by the other kings of FNAF games, and that cannot go overlooked. I highly suggest you give this game a try, even if you think it's too hard. I don't think you'll regret it. I just really hope they add in a feature to get rid of the nauseating head bobbing because holy shit, I almost threw up multiple times playing this. In the last video, I asked you all what was the funniest experience you've ever had playing a FNAF game. And my favorite comment was this one by Saf the Dark Angel. Needless to say, we love irony here on the Dxtr White channel. We're all too familiar with it. Have you ever been on acid? If the answer is yes, don't admit that and incriminate yourself. Instead, I'd like to ask all you acid doers a question. Have you ever heard of Five Nights at Wario's? I personally have never done acid, but after playing this game, I can only imagine that's what it's like. So by the end of this video, let me know. Five Nights at Wario's is a FNAF fan game made by Wario. I'll be referring to him as Andy since that's his name. I'll be totally transparent, I'm not a huge fan of the gameplay in this game, however, the story is what really interests me. So while yes, I will be talking about the game mechanics just like I would with any game, I want to put some emphasis on the story as well, since it might honestly be better than Five Nights at Freddy's story-wise. Considering you're counting everything after FNAF Pizzeria Simulator, the games after that make me want to slam my dick in a car door. Before I start, however, let me take a look at how the newest video's doing. Thanks for that. My sub count more than doubled since my last video was uploaded, and it's almost to 8,000 views as of writing this. I appreciate it greatly. Also, thank you all for the comments you left. I tried responding to most of them, and if I couldn't think of a good response, I tried to heart them to let you know I saw. Also, the question I asked in the last video was, what's your favorite FNAF fan game and why? My favorite comment was this one from EmberFox4951. They mentioned Day Shift at Freddy's, the game I almost made a video about before deciding to cover Five Nights at Fuckboys. If you're interested in being at the beginning of one of my videos, stick around to the end of this video where I'll be asking another question. Anywho, let's get into the video. Five Nights at Wario's begins with a cutscene. We're told that a few years ago, Wario and Waluigi opened a fast food factory together, and one day when they went into work, they never came back out and haven't been seen since. Years have passed, and now the government is reopening the factory, and we're hired for an overnight security guard. I already have a few issues. One, what is a fast food factory? Fast food and factory are two words that don't mix with one another. Fast food implies that you get your food, fast. But factory implies that the food is packaged and sent to other companies to sell. Maybe they're producing the meat or the boxes and shipping it to other restaurants so that they can cook and use it. That's the only thing that could make sense to me. And two, the government reopened it? Why would the government reopen a factory that makes fast food products? That doesn't make much sense. Who's in charge? The president? That just doesn't sound quite right to me. Anyways, we're loaded in and get our first sights on the office. And well, let's just say, compared to the office we covered last time, this ain't Van Gogh. You'll be able to tell most of the sets in this game were taken straight from Google and blown up to fit the screen rather than being modeled and rendered from Blender. Most of the art is very pixelated and sometimes it's hard to make out what some objects are. Like, I cannot for the life of me figure out what this thing on the shelf is. I'm thinking it's a toilet facing left because I have no idea what else this could possibly be. Regardless, the gameplay is almost the same as Five Nights at Freddy's 1. You have a door on each side of you, although the one on the right is technically a window, but it functions the same way a door does. You have cameras that let you see around the building, and one camera that only has audio. You also have a computer in front of you, but that won't be important until Night 4. On Night 1, Wario and Waluigi are active characters. They will move around the cameras until making it to your left door. Both Wario and Waluigi use your left door and never switch. Both make a sound cue as they reach your door, letting you know that they're there. I have a huge problem with these sound cues. It was never a problem on this night and only ever became a problem on Night 5. I don't think the sound cues work as they're supposed to in this game. On Night 5 there are several, and I do mean several, times where Wario or Waluigi would jump scare me even though no sound cue was ever played. This led to me having to develop a new strategy I'll get into later. Something you might notice while looking through the cameras is how rancid a lot of the character renders look. This game did my boy Waluigi, and especially my boy Luigi, so dirty. I'll get into Luigi later, but just look at Waluigi. What happened to his arms? Why are they longer than the massive shit I took earlier? The designs of these characters, I feel, were supposed to make them unsettling, but instead I found myself laughing whenever I caught a glimpse of a new render. I don't think anyone is scared of this. On Night 2 we're introduced to Luigi. Technically Peach can also spawn on this night, but it's super unlikely so I won't talk about her yet. Luigi's design makes me feel really gross. For some reason Andy decided to make it look like his nose was stuffed with a 30-pound dumbbell. Look at that! What is that? If he's supposed to be dead, I get why. His big ass nose probably snapped his neck into 2 clean cuts. I cannot take him seriously. Trying to put that aside, Luigi's mechanic is super simple to deal with. He'll move around the cameras, but instead of going to your left door, he'll go to your right. He also makes a sound cue, and you're supposed to be able to tell the difference based on what kind of sound you hear. If you hear a door creaking sound, that's how you know either Wario or Waluigi is at your door. And if you hear footsteps, that's how you know that Luigi is at your door. Again, Luigi only ever attacks at the right door, so when you hear the footsteps, you know just to check that one. But of course, on Night 5 there were several occasions where Luigi would attack me with no sound cue whatsoever. So I'm not totally sure what's going on, and I'll talk about it more when we get to Night 5. But before we can do that, we need to talk about Night 3. Night 3 introduces Peach. Peach works in the exact same way all the other characters do. She'll move around the cameras until she comes to your door. Just like Luigi, she'll only ever attack the right door. She also has a sound cue that is footsteps, but unlike Wario and Waluigi, you'll be able to tell whether Luigi or Peach is attacking, because Peach's footsteps don't sound nearly as heavy as Luigi's, and it sounds like she's wearing heels. I bet you could guess that she also causes major problems on Night 5, and you'd be right. Night 4 introduces the last main character from this game, Mario. Mario is a character that finally does something different. You never see Mario on your cameras as far as I'm aware. Instead, when you flip down your camera, there's a chance he can appear on your computer screen. While on your screen, he has a few states he can go through, each getting closer and closer to you as you close your monitor. If he gets too close, the next time you put your camera down, he'll be in your office like the withered animatronics from FNAF 2. When he appears, all you have to do is raise your camera, and he'll reset. Now, you might be asking yourself, if Mario only ever gets close when you open your cameras, and you just said Mario is the last main character in the game, and all the other characters have sound cues to let you know they're at the door, then why would you ever open the camera in the first place? Well, I have an answer for you. You don't. Yeah, that's right. There is no reason to ever lift up your cameras throughout the whole game. There's no Foxy. Mario is the closest thing to Foxy, but it's in reverse, so it doesn't even matter. As long as you're listening for sound cues and closing the doors in time, Mario can never attack you, making nights 1 through 4 an absolute cakewalk. Bringing up the fact that you really only need sound, Chicken Ninja 42, if you're looking for another challenge, play Five Nights at Wario's without sound. I dare you, see what happens. But now we need to talk about Night 5. Oh boy, Night 5. How I hate you. Alright, so, Night 5 adds no new characters. It just increases the difficulty of the 5 characters we've seen already. Oh my god, this night makes me want to die. To start, the characters seem to move at a rate so fast that the moment the night starts, they're already at my door. The reason you'd think that? Well, you hear their sound cues right away, but then you check the doors and nobody is there, so you don't close the door. You sit there in silence waiting for another sound cue. Eventually you hear one, so you go to check your lights. Guess what, fucker? Your buttons are jammed. Why are your buttons jammed, you ask in frustration? Because unbeknownst to you, there have been characters camping your doors for the last 30 seconds, and you didn't respond and close the doors fast enough. Why didn't you close the door fast enough, you ask? Because they didn't make another fucking sound cue. They just appeared out of thin air. Leave the package at the door, because I won't be there to sign for my ass being handed to me. Now you might be wondering, if you don't ever have to lift up the cameras, couldn't you just in theory sit in your office and not do anything? In FNAF 1, characters can't jump scare you even if your buttons are jammed, so long as you don't raise your camera. That's why Foxy's there. But there is no regular Foxy in this game, so what's the problem? Well, the characters in this game don't give a shit if your monitor is up. If your door is open and you don't close it, they're walking their happy asses right in to slap you right across the face with their crank. When I tell you that this night took me over an hour to complete, I'm not lying. I had to look on YouTube for a new strategy because these characters don't make the sound cues they're supposed to. I ended up having to constantly open the camera and check the two cameras that were right next to my door and dealing with Mario as normal. After completing night 5, we walk out of the factory before getting shown an end screen with a question mark after the word end. Then we're thrown into night 6. Does night 6 add anything new or unique to the gameplay loop? No. No, it doesn't. It's just a harder version of night 5. Nothing much to talk about. After completing it, we see a final end screen telling us to never enter the factory when it's closed again. And the game is finally finished. Of course, there's a custom night, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't add anything else. Just like most FNAF games, this game has phone calls at the beginning of each night. On night 1, we're told that we're just supposed to watch the factory for break-ins and to make sure the machines are working as intended. Which, if we're watching to make sure the machines work, does this imply that the factory has no human workers? Maybe. We're also told about a rumor. Apparently something happened 7 years ago and we're not supposed to think or worry about it. I don't know why he told me about it if I wasn't supposed to think about it, but whatever, I suppose. On night 2, the phone guy brings up the rumor again before quickly brushing it off. Then he tells us that 7 years ago, the whole gang that worked at the factory went missing and was never found. A year later, a woman was passing by the factory and claimed she saw Wario in one of the windows of the factory. And a year after that, another man saw the same thing. At first, I thought the rumor was that the characters went missing or something related, but after re-listening to this call, it's very clear that the workers going missing and this rumor are two different things. Something to put in the back of your mind. Night 3 is really where we start to get some lore drops. We're told that 7 years ago, Wario and Waluigi went to work and never came back out. Mario and Luigi, concerned, went to check on them. Upon entering the building, they also never came back out. Peach, who was worried about her boyfriend Mario, went into the factory to look for him, and she, as I'm sure you could guess, also never came back out. After this, apparently some unknown man entered the factory, and he too never emerged from the factory again. We're told that the factory had a costume for mascot purposes, which alone doesn't make sense, because why would a factory have a mascot? But putting that aside, the day the unknown man went into the factory, the costume disappeared and has never been found. Afterwards, a rumor was started that the factory was cursed and it finally closed down. Wow, a lot of exposition for one phone call, I know, but now at least we finally have a lead to go off of. We now know that the rumor from earlier is that the factory was cursed, and I'm willing to bet it has something to do with the unknown man that went into the factory and the costume disappearing. On this night, the phone guy also mentions to us that the machines in the factory have randomly been turning off and on at night. Very odd. Let's keep that in mind. On night 4, we're told that it should be our final shift for a while at the factory, as they will be closing temporarily. We're told the machines won't stop randomly turning off and on, and that one of the employees found 2 teeth in one of the rooms. The phone guy asks us if we've seen anyone walking around, because he says he's been hearing voices while at work. He claimed to hear a voice saying, "Stop him," and "Help me." Apparently the voice sounded like Luigi's. My guess is this unknown man that went into the factory is the man that Luigi was talking about, but that may be subject to change. Night 5 is the super spooky, bone-chilling, ass-quaking phone call. Phone guy questions why we're at the factory even though it's closed, and there actually doesn't seem to be a good answer for that. We're told we're stuck inside until the doors open at 6 a.m. and that the phone guy is coming to try to open the doors for us earlier. He tells us he read something about souls. Apparently, if a soul seeks revenge, they can become angry and confused, and sometimes even take over their old bodies again. This would explain why we could see the characters walking around the factory. Phone guy tells us that Wario and Waluigi had a secret recipe that they came up with years ago, and he thinks that there may be people breaking into the factory to steal the recipe. We're also told that these souls will become hostile towards things that are similar to what caused them to die. Which brings the question, if the characters are hostile towards us, does that mean that another worker, possibly a security guard, is what killed them? And is this unknown man that entered the building the one who did it? The phone guy gets to the door of the factory before our line cuts to static and we hear this. If you didn't understand what was said there, the voice said, "We shall avenge whoever did this to us." It's unclear who exactly is saying this, but now we know that these souls are pissed. Most likely, rightfully so. Night 6 has no phone call and neither does Night 7, so this is what we're left with. 7 years ago, for some unknown reason, when Wario and Waluigi went into work, they never returned. Mario and Luigi went to check on them, but went missing, and Peach went to look for Mario, but went missing as well. An unknown man entered the factory the same day the mascot costume went missing, and the factory closed due to a rumor that it was cursed. 7 years later, the government reopens the factory. The machines keep turning off and on, likely from the souls of the old workers, and teeth are found in one of the rooms. The souls are wanting to avenge what killed them and are seemingly upset at us, leading us to believe that we look like or are similar to whatever killed them. That's a big piece of food to bite off, but it's definitely a start. I suppose now it's important to mention 2 other characters that appear in this game. Sometimes, on occasion, when you look at the bathroom camera, which is the camera with only audio, you can see flashes of a weird looking version of Wario. That character is Wario Man. Wario Man is almost undoubtedly the costume that was mentioned in the phone calls, as I have no idea what else it could be. The other character is something I only saw once in my entire playthrough. One time I flashed my light at the left door and saw this. I have no idea what that is, but I'll just refer to it as Entity for the sake of convenience. I'd want to guess that the Entity is the unknown man, but for some reason I'm leaning against that idea, but I could be wrong. Where we're at now, I'm guessing that the day the characters went missing were actually all the same day, and the unknown man went into the factory to look for the recipe. While he was there, I think he got into the Wario Man costume and killed everyone inside out of fear that the police would be called. But that's all I've got for now. And with that, that's all I've got for this video. If you're as captivated by this story as I am already, let me know in the comments and I can start cooking up another Wario video. I'd never post the same topic back to back, so the next Wario video won't be next. I plan on doing a community poll for my next video, so be on the lookout for that so you can get your vote in. I'd also like to say thanks to the Galaxy TG, as they're the person I took the gameplay for this video from, as the video I filmed got corrupted.
What do you think is the most underrated Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? A series that is so amazing you'd think it'd be talked about everywhere. But when you go to check, it seems like nobody has ever even heard of it. The game we'll be covering today is one of those games for me, and when doing research for this video, especially when talking about the lore, I found it incredibly difficult to piece it together because of how little information there seems to be about it. But rest assured, I think I've got it figured out. The game we'll be covering today is Project Readjusted, a FNAF fan game with one of my favorite stories of all time. Sit back, relax, and let's jump into this amazing trilogy together. But hold up, guys. I signed a contract, which means I'm legally obligated to give you an ad read. This message is sponsored by Raycon, baby! Hands down the best in the wireless earbud industry. And during this holiday season, they're giving our community a great deal with their new bone conduction headphones. They're perfect for staying alert while on a walk or even just going out to the store. And for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, you can save up to 30% on all Raycon audio products. Raycon's bone conduction headphones use off-ear audio, meaning instead of plugging your ear up, they send sound vibrations through your bones, which means your ears can stay open to the world around you while still getting crystal clear audio from your music, podcasts, or calls. And these headphones are perfect for multitasking. I can throw these puppies on while I go to the store and not have to worry about accidentally ignoring my friends when they come up to me and looking like an asshole. Even better yet, they're built for all-day use, with 13 hours of battery life, and they're IP68 waterproof and dustproof, which means your sweat won't break them. And I've seen how much you sweat. Ew, it's gross. You need these. And here's the best part. Raycon offers premium quality without the premium price tag. Their quality easily rivals other big audio brands, but at half the cost. Plus, over 3 million customers already love Raycon, including me, and they come with a 30-day happiness guarantee. Black Friday is around the corner. Raycon audio products are up to 30% off site-wide, from everyday essentials to the latest releases. It's the perfect time to upgrade your sound or get ahead on gifting. These early deals won't last long. Shop now before they're gone. Click the link in my description or go to buyraycon.com/DexterWhiteBC to get up to 30% off during Raycon's Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. Thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring this video and allowing me to continue to scream in your guys' ears for a living. The first big change I noticed in Project Readjusted from most FNAF games is the way the phone calls were handled. Rather than having the phone calls take place inside the game, this game instead chooses to have us listen to the phone call before we even load into the office, instead giving us a still image to look at showing the characters we will be seeing on each night. I'll admit it's unique, however, I think I'd personally prefer to be able to mess around with the cameras, mechanics, and so on while the phone guy is talking, and just have to make sure nobody moves while that's happening. I feel that's a much better way to utilize the first phone call in a FNAF game. The first phone call doesn't give out any meaningful information, really just going over how the main character Buster works, but it's my job to explain the mechanics, so I don't think I'll be letting the depressed sounding Wei Ji do that for me. Upon loading into the office, you may feel just a little cramped, and that's normal. This office is teeny tiny, like much smaller than most FNAF offices I've seen in my days. Obviously, we have a door to the office, because if we didn't, I'd question how we even got into the room in the first place. However, the interesting thing about this door is that it doesn't close. Oh, Dexter, does it not have an actual door? Like, it's just a doorway? No, there's a door. Our character just for some reason chooses not to close it. But instead of thinking that's because we're playing in the shoes of a dumbass, I'm instead going to assume it's because we're playing in the shoes of a badass who isn't scared of anything. We also, of course, have our cameras, which are very interesting to say the least. To start, they have two modes, lights on mode and useless mode. Because, as I'm sure you could have guessed, if the lights are off, you can't see anything. I know, groundbreaking. You'll also notice you have a camera stability percentage. What does that mean? Well, as the name suggests, it reads the percentage of your camera stability. I'm sorry, I'll stop talking like that. While on your cameras, the stability will quickly decrease. Putting the camera down will cause it to quickly increase back up. If it drops down to 0, you're gonna have to wait a while before being able to use it again. So, what about that Buster fella I mentioned earlier? How does he work? Great question, viewer of questionable stench. Buster is as basic as a character can get. I'm sure you could probably guess what he does, but it's my job to tell you. Buster will move around through the cameras with the goal of getting to your office. Once there, he'll peek his little head through the door. Using this comically large blue button on the wall of your office, you can shine a light into the doorway, revealing he has the teeth of a British person. Hold this light on him for long enough and he'll go away. Simple sugar. After night 1, we get a short cutscene. You guys seem to like the narration I did in my Maggie's video, so instead of just summarizing what happened like I would usually do, I figured, why not narrate this as well? Hey, it's been a long time, you and me. We finally met ends on a good note, for now. I'm only implying that our experience will be better. Now, there is something I need to tell you. I know I'm jumping to conclusions without explaining who I am, but bear with me. There is something inside this diner. Just maybe put on some type of gig to make some fool believe you to make them work here. Maybe that person will lure that thing out. I'll tell you more tomorrow, but for now, let's begin to go inside. Let's take the back alley, as it's less noticeable. Come along, we only have 5 days. Sounds like someone's trying to dupe us and use us as bait. That's not very kind, vaguely barbaric. But whatever, we're already working here. I guess it's just in our best interest to not die. Moving on to night 2, you can quickly take a little nap because the phone guy takes a billion years to talk about the new character this night adds, and ramble about some arcade machines. The new character added on this night is Old Buster. At least, that's the name that would make sense. However, this character's name is actually Redeemer. Quite literally, being an older Buster model, I can't quite wrap my head around why they chose to name him in the way they did. Redeemer makes use of your vents, something I've neglected to mention thus far. You can't really see it, but the vent is to the right of your office behind the door, so just out of sight. Redeemer does whatever he damn well pleases until he eventually decides to enter the vent. When he does, an obvious sound cue will play letting you know he's entered. Once he reaches your office, he'll dive in. When he's in your office, it's very important that you don't look at him. However, since the office we're in is so small, it may prove very difficult to just look away from him. So you'll have to be looking at your cameras while he's in your office instead. I guess Redeemer has the mindset of, if I can't see him, he can't see me. Stupid ass robot. This, however, may bring up a possible conflict. If your camera stability is too low by the time Redeemer gets to your office, it's safe to say that you wouldn't have a very good time. But luckily for us, at this point in the game, checking the cameras is entirely useless. So as of right now, this shouldn't be a problem. Hey, so I was looking around in these garbage bins and found a key. It's great, I know, the low effort put into protecting this place. Anyways, remember that idea I had, well, a few minutes ago? I got this one guy on my phone now. His name is Hayden Simmons. Pretty dumb fellow. I bet he doesn't even know of this place. Probably a high school dropout or a kid desperate for some easy cash. Well, now let's venture inside this establishment and set up an office for our buddy. So we know the name of our character, Hayden Simmons. Too bad his name is one of the rhyming Aiden names, probably the worst group of names anybody could have. That's besides the point though. It seems like the building we're working in isn't even supposed to have an office. It's clear something sinister is going on here, but we don't quite know what yet. Moving on to night 3, I'm going to spare you the details and have us skip the phone call because he explains what the newest character does in an amount of time that could be an entire video by itself. Night 3 introduces Ned. Ned is ugly, like ugly as sin. He's got a face not even a mother could love. Booger-ah, boy. He will try to make his way to your office via the long hallway in the building. Unlike Buster, he isn't a complete dumbass, so the light trick won't really work on him. What will work on him, however, is the replace machinery button that I've blatantly and purposefully ignored up until this point, because explaining it earlier really wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense, now would it? Ned has multiple stages in the hallway. Every time you use the replace machinery button, he will go back a stage. I'm sure you can figure out how this works. Push him back, wait for the button to recharge, push him back again, keep him away from your office, which would in turn keep him away from your genitals. Whoopity-doo. However, this does bring up the issue of us needing to use our cameras now. So in combination with Redeemer, Ned could end up being a big problem down the road. Alright, sorry for keeping you waiting, but I had to run back to my car to get a battery for my phone. It's pretty low percentage right now, but it'll last now. Hayden says he'll be able to work next week, which is great. We'll pay him around $150 for his work, I guess. Maybe it's considered a scam to him, but I don't care. He just said he's not a fan of night jobs, but will do it anyways, and he'll play on his phone. Like that's gonna go down well. Anyways, let's head inside. The Wi-Fi better not be bad inside, I swear. Not much to note from this cutscene. We know we're getting criminally underpaid, and we know that playing on our phone really isn't going to be an option, which just makes me smile from ear to ear personally. Night 4 introduces 2 new characters. However, one of them serves to be more of an annoyance than an actual threat, so we'll talk about him first. Greg is a little asshole. Really, this game's Balloon Boy. Not because he has the same mechanic, except I lied because he kinda does. His main goal is to disable your light and leave you vulnerable to Buster. He'll slowly crawl across your office. You will have to click him multiple times to make him go away. If you don't, he'll park his fat ass on the button and prevent you from using your light. You might be asking yourself, Dxtr, clicking on him? How does the game justify that making sense? Perfect question. From the way the phone guy describes it, it's just poking him. So I guess this motherfucker's just the Pillsbury Doughboy. Ticklish ass robot. The other That's so fucking stupid. The other character introduced on this night is Glancy, what I feel is this game's most frustrating character. Glancy tries to get into the back storage room and just literally fuck up everything in the entire building. Rip wires, killing your lights and your camera. So obviously something you should want to avoid. The way you do so is very easy. Remember how I mentioned the cameras had 2 states, on and useless? Well, turns out I lied, as the useless mode actually isn't useless. When Glancy gets into this back room, all you have to do is turn the camera lights off and he won't be able to see shit, making him decide to travel into another room by accident. I'd imagine it's an accident since he can't see, but he could have easily just gotten pissed off and left on his own accord. Which, if he can see where the exit is, you'd probably think he could see the wires, but I guess not. We're inside. Now, let's just put some of these cameras around the building and we'll be all set. Oh, never mind. There's a panel lying down on the shelf. Wait. You hear that? Well, anyways, you'll record calls just to convince him, Andrew. Just do a casual voice or whatever. Nice, these'll work. What the? Did I just hear walking? Wait, who are you? Andrew, run. He's looking for me. I'll see you around, friend. Dope. So we know the name of our phone guy, Andrew. Sounds like whoever is heard in these cutscenes isn't Andrew then. And apparently upon entering the building, something found them. Andrew ran, leaving whoever he was with behind, not knowing what the outcome was. Night 5's phone call actually has something interesting in it, if you could believe that. Andrew tells us that the character introduced on this night has something they want. Finally, a motive for what they're doing. Apparently this new character, Vinard, has a special chip that they really want. Andrew doesn't explain why they want this chip, but I'm sure we're gonna find out. Speaking of Vinard, what does he do? Well, he will try to hack the cameras so that you can't use them, and then wheel his way over to your office to kill you. Not sure why he has to disable the cameras to do that, but he does, I guess. Occasionally, you will see a purple error next to his camera. When you do, all you have to do is go to that camera and turn the light off so he can't see. Because like some people, he can't type without looking at the keyboard. Embarrassing. That's a talent you probably want to learn if you're on a computer all day. But that's really all he does. It really starts to show on this night how difficult this game can be, requiring you to be in the cameras very frequently. The only real chance you'll get to recharge your stability is when Buster is attacking, and I think that was on purpose for the sake of balancing, but maybe I'm being too optimistic. Unlike every other night, Night 5 doesn't have a post-night cutscene, so I can't talk about that. What I can talk about, however, is an Easter egg, and a fun piece of trivia about one of the characters in this game. After completing Night 5, you will unlock Custom Night. Inside, if you set everyone to max and click the Fox plushie in your office, you'll get this jump scare. And if you're interested in something about Vinard, he's actually a character made by Mixlass, the guy that made Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. and Baby's Nightmare Circus, which I've covered on this channel before. Definitely go watch that video after you finish this one. And as a result of using Mixlass's character, Mixlass then used one of Mechless's characters in his game Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. Pretty cool if you ask me. But that is all Project Readjusted has to offer. Overall, I think the game is surprisingly mechanically complex for a first game, something pretty uncommon with fan games that take place in a series like this. But don't let the lack of lore fool you, as Project Readjusted has one of the most interesting stories I've ever seen, and it continues in Project Readjusted too. It's been so long since I've seen Matthew. He just disappeared. I must find him again. I have so many questions. I could possibly get answers from the new Buster's location. The location is currently being renovated, but they must need some kind of guard. Could be hiding there after all this time. Well, let's see where this takes me in my hunt to find him. Project Readjusted 2 opens with a mission already in mind, finding a man named Matthew. I'm unsure who Matthew could be. My only guess at this time is it's the guy that got left behind by Andrew in the first game, but that is obviously unconfirmed as of now. Our player, Andrew, enters an old Buster's location to look for answers, throwing us right into Night 1. Loading into Night 1, we get a call from the phone guy who goes over the basics of what we'll be doing. He mentions that they're currently working on newer models of all the characters. Not a whole lot of interest to point out during this call. However, what is of interest is how scared I was when I first saw the equivalent of 3 fucking music boxes and 1 camera. But lucky us, we don't have to worry about that right now. Unlike Readjusted 1, this game doesn't have anything to stop you from staring at your cameras for as long as you'd like, which is a breath of fresh air. But that only means that this game is going to be AIDS in a different way, and we'll figure out how soon. Let's talk about the first and only threat Night 1 introduces, Cable Buster, who I'm just going to be calling Buster because I'm lazy. Buster makes use of a new mechanic this game introduces, the Showtime tapes in Camera 1. When Buster gets to either Camera 5 or Camera 7, you will have to look at him. He will be repeating a day of the week. I don't know why he feels the need to say it out loud constantly. Phone guy explained that apparently that's what he's designed to do, walk around the building and inform people when the show is about to start. But why would he say the day of the week if that was the case? I have no idea. Once Buster says what day of the week the show is on, you will have to quickly go to Camera 1, set the sound file to the day of the week he stated, and play the audio track. This will cause him to meander back to Camera 1 and do a little jiggy. Just kidding, he doesn't dance. I just lied to you. Something isn't right. Papers are coming in about a missing person. A missing person at the old Buster's. It must have been the spy that Matthew took care of. He's on the prowl and I will end it in this place. There's no way I can fail this. His tracks are so hidden yet so predictable. I just need more clues. So, Matthew killed a guy, and not just any guy, he killed a spy. So clearly Matthew is probably a bad and dangerous man. So we should approach with caution. Not knowing anything else, we move on to Night 2. Night 2, the phone guy introduces some new mechanics, but fuck him, my voice sounds better. Night 2 introduces Infested Glancer, but before we talk about what he does, we should talk about the second thing our cameras can do. Show some air ducts. Hooray! The air duct menu is very reminiscent of the ones from Ultimate Custom Night. You have a radar that you can use to detect anything moving inside. Spoiler alert, Glancer is inside. You may also notice that there are 3 things you can repair. Are your FNAF 3 senses going off? Because mine are going haywire and it's making me want to off myself. The 3 things to repair are your radar, your lights, and your doors. Glancer will attack any of the 3 vents in your air ducts, all of which lead to your office. Use the radar to find where he is and close the door when he gets too close. You'll notice that you have a meter on this screen that tracks your door power. If it runs out, you'll have to reboot the doors, and of course, after too many uses of your radar, you'll have to reboot that as well. Glancer brings up a very obvious issue. He's fucking annoying, and he's very fast, easily being the most annoying character in this entire game, demanding the majority of your attention like a clingy girlfriend that you're slowly falling out of love with. And of course, the repairs in this game are some of the most frustrating mechanics I've ever had to deal with, spending the majority of my playthrough listening to that ear-grating beeping. This is where camera stalling comes into play. By staring at Glancer, or Buster if you really wanted to, you can prevent them from moving. Glancer does not initially start in the air ducts, so I'd usually spend as long as I possibly could staring at him so he didn't slip away, because once he's in those ducts is when he becomes Satan. I can't decide on what to do. This whole situation is terrible. One wrong step and I'm in jail or potentially executed. I'm not falling into that hole of guilt with no way to release it. But damn, corpse inside that Glancer suit has definitely gotta be the spy. What else would Matthew have done to the body? Thrown it out? No way. I got my evidence. Now I just have to find Matthew himself. He can't be stopped now. So apparently there's a body inside of Glancer, the spy that Matthew killed. So yeah, that checks out. It really wouldn't be a FNAF game if people weren't getting stuffed into mascot suits, would it? Night 2 introduces 2 new characters, Magic Suit and Wraith Ned. Let's talk about Ned first since he's less annoying. He's this game's version of a Phantom Chica. Occasionally, he can start to appear on one of your cameras. If you don't look away from him fast enough, he'll jump scare you and cause you to need to repair everything. Your radar, your lights, your doors, your dick. Not super annoying, just get some reflexes and you'll be fine. Magic Suit, on the other hand, is very annoying. This is the guy who thought it'd be really funny to have 3 fucking music boxes at the same time. His 3 plugs will slowly decrease in power. You'll have to keep them charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mike you. Fuck. You'll have to keep fuck. You'll have to keep him charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mike you. But in all honesty, these 2 new characters aren't even an issue. This entire game's main problem is Glancer. God, I hate him so much I could just stick a fork in my ass. That doesn't even make any sense, but irrational anger causes irrational responses sometimes. I don't know what to tell you. What the hell was that purple thing? Is the air in this place toxic? What the hell? Can't keep working here. I must escape before I lose my mind. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a feeling finding Matthew won't be easy. Speaking of which, I found a tape from the old location. That Glancer suit had made itself in the backstage. How? Must have found the pieces from when the original Glancer and Glossy characters were split up and put together. I don't know how sewing those 2 together made any sense, but I guess it was good for Halloween. Scratch that. Anyways, Matthew forced that spy corpse down inside the Glancer suit while it was trying to escape. What is wrong with these chips? I feel like someone is controlling them. No way this is artificially programmed in the animatronics. It's too mobile. Now there's more than one thing I need to find out. Great. So it sounds to me that Glancer put himself together and tried to escape the building, but while doing so, Matthew stuffed a corpse of the spy inside of him. What the hell is going on? I have no idea, but hopefully some more context will come along soon. The only character introduced on Night 4 is Wraith Finn, being in my opinion the second biggest threat in this game. Finn will quietly appear in your office. Up until this point, you haven't had any reason to ever lower your camera. Well, Finn is now your reason. When he appears in your office, you will have to hold your mouse over the top half of his body until he fades away. If you don't, say hello to a fuck ton of repairs and a quick death. Something I find really weird about this mechanic is how it's explained in the game. The phone guy literally tells us to put our cursor over it.
She said she stared at what she saw, putting your cursor right on its upper half. That's kind of specific, but whatever. Just her, I guess. Anyway, good night.
I've never really seen a FNAF game be meta like this before, but I guess how else are you supposed to explain the mechanic? I suppose you could say to stare at it, but that wouldn't indicate you need to touch it with your mouse. Overall, a very goofy introduction, and a character that I forgot about so much, I think I died to him more than any other character throughout this entire franchise. Okay, I have many questions. How did that design get into this place, and how did it just fade out of existence? It was called Finn. We never got around to finishing it. It was like Buster's pal. The head was never done, but he had his other pieces done. Although I noticed this Finn had his hands gone. This place is so damn weird. This place is so damn weird. Alright, so really nothing interesting said there at all. Finn was supposed to be Buster's friend. Buster is a fucking robot. He has no friends. Moving on to Night 5, as it should be much more interesting and hopefully have a more interesting post-night cutscene. Night 5 introduces the last threat this game has to offer, Wraith Vinard. A character that isn't too terrible to deal with, but will really just act to take more of your needed time away from Glancy, which is obviously not something we want. Vinard only ever appears on camera 8. Occasionally, when checking that camera, you will see Vinard's silhouette with no eyes. You will have to stare at him until his eyes appear. Once they appear, you will then have to quickly look away as if you aren't the fucking reason his eyes appeared in the first place. Something super interesting to note that I haven't mentioned so far is how these wraiths have been explained by the phone guy. being the only characters he's convinced aren't real. But you might be wondering, if he doesn't think they're real, why does he mention them? That's a good point. Apparently, the guard that worked here before us left several notes about these wraiths, and the phone guy is reading her notes to us in the phone calls. Maybe as an in case, maybe just to make fun of her. Who's to say? Either way, I find it interesting. Vinard. With legs? What is going on anymore? I can't take things seriously. Wait, no. I hear sirens. I still haven't found Matthew. And I got several people outside awaiting my arrival. Police cars. Someone found out. Someone told them. Matthew, you bastard. I will find you. You won't get away with this. I can't believe this is how my story ends. It's not right. I can't. Matthew was never found by any officials or Andrew. Andrew attempted to bring the situation to court, but not enough evidence was collected. Andrew was deemed guilty for the corpse inside Buster's Diner World and was sentenced to death row, his execution following a month after being assigned. This was not the outcome he had thought of. It could have been worse. This story is false. Well, goddamn! Quick recap. In this game, we play as Andrew, the phone guy from the first game. We still don't fully know exactly who Matthew is, but he called the police and informed them that Andrew was at the building and had killed someone. They arrived, found the body in the Glancer suit, and had Andrew killed, giving us the fake ending. Oh god, endings, Dxtr. Let's quickly go over what it takes to get this true ending, please. Well, there are several minigames you will need to complete throughout the game in order to get this true ending. Let's blast through how to get them. During each night, a specific camera will have its name flickering slightly. Clicking on the name will shoot you into the minigame. On night 1, it's the main supply camera. On night 2, it's the West Hall. Night 3, it's the secondary supply entry. Night 4, it's the secondary supply entry again. And night 5, it's the power breaker. After completing all the minigames and successfully beating night 5, you'll get the true ending instead. The minigame. It spoke the words I couldn't find myself. Matthew died with his baby. A tape left on him. I can't explain what I've experienced here. I can't go on with this sudden guilt. This damned children's entertainment chain should have never happened. This outcome was not proper. And I can't handle it. I don't know what will happen next. I'll report the death of him and the corpse to the police. At least I can get off with no charges. I can't put myself to do it. I can't go the route my gut wants me to go. Later the same night, Andrew had a heart attack. No evidence was ever turned into the police due to this. Nearly a week later, police arrived after suspicion from pedestrians roaming the streets. Police had not told any officials about what was found and began to demolish the location. Andrew's story is over. An ending to a tragic story. There are no solutions to the problem. Diner World Entertainment was shut down immediately and ran out of business, seeking a new opportunity to reach into kids' hearts. This is the true story. Well, goddamn! Turns out it didn't matter what he did. Andrew still died, and no word of Matthew was ever heard from the police. We just can't win, can we? Well, luckily for us, this storyline does continue, and even more lucky for us, it continues in the best game in the series, and arguably one of the most creative FNAF games ever designed.
I know who you are, Andrew Vargas. I've seen your name in records before. I know what you're doing. You want information. Lots of it. I'm no provider, but I can lead you to what you want. I know that man, Matthew, has been nothing but a mystery to you. His image is shrouded in a dense fog that your gaze cannot penetrate. But you want to break it, do you not? You can either go the full walk or fall short. There is no try this time. All the information you want to grasp so badly can be obtained. All you have to do is satisfy us. There are 3 captives full of knowledge below the storage facility. Treat them to our satisfaction, and they will live out to the 5th and final day. On that day, they will be free. They will be able to tell you all that they know. This is what you want, right? The data you seek is waiting for you.
And here we are! Project Readjusted 3, the last game in the series and undoubtedly the best. This opening cutscene throws us right into the world of this twisted game. We play as Andrew. That might seem a bit confusing since Andrew died in the last game. But guess what? Apparently, both of the fucking endings weren't real. So what the fuck? I'm not joking, by the way. I'm being completely serious. Both of the endings in the second game aren't real. The true ending isn't real. Both the fake ending and the true ending both didn't fucking happen because it takes place before this one. So like, what the fuck was that all about, huh? Anyways, we're not sure who was speaking to us in that cutscene, but apparently there are 3 survivors that have all the information we need to solve whatever is going on with Matthew. And with that, we're tossed into night 1. This game does progress based on objectives instead of time. But rather than a game like Pizzeria Simulator where the tasks you have to complete are mind-numbing, the task in this game actually requires a small bit of brain power and is truly one of the most creative takes on a FNAF game I've ever seen. We're tasked with protecting these 3 captives. In the cameras, you'll be able to see 3 rooms. Each of these rooms holds one of the captives. You can keep track of their stats at the bottom of the monitor, see how much hunger, thirst, and satisfaction they're all at. Note how much supply you have. Your goal throughout this night is to send these captives shipments of food and water. Then, once they're all satisfied, the night can end. When you open the gate, food and water will slowly be dispensed. You can control which room these packages will go to. The longer you take to send a captive something, the lower their satisfaction will go. At the top of the screen, you'll see a minimum grade you need to complete the night, and which grade you're currently at. Meaning you don't have to fill each room up to its entirety to complete the night. However, I'm a fucking badass and chose to get the best grade possible on each night. In order to refill your supplies, you will have to complete a task. A set of numbers will appear in a random order and you will have to click them in that order. When you finish, your supply will be slightly filled. Side note, if you ever see this sliding minigame instead of the number 1, that's because in that specific moment, I'm using footage from Indie Fuel. And in his playthrough, he was playing an earlier version of the game that used a different minigame. And that's all that happens on night 1. I could talk about the cameras for sure, but I think that'll become much more important in night 2, which actually brings on the first and main threat this game has to offer. But before we can get to that, in true final game lore dump fashion, after each night we get a post-night minigame to have fun with. In this minigame, we just kind of walk around. We check the stage in the main room and notice that there's supposed to be 2 animatronics on stage, the other being Finn. You may remember him from the second game. We go backstage where we believe Finn should be, only to find a dead child on the ground, bringing this minigame to a close. Something really awesome about this game is the patient hub. Dxtr, what's the patient hub? If you'd shut the fuck up and watch the video like a normal person, instead of continuously asking questions like the girl you're watching a movie with that you really wish you didn't invite over because you're just trying to watch the fucking movie, I'd explain it to you. Sorry, lost my temper a little bit. Anyways, the patient hub is on the menu. Using it will actually let you go to talk to the 3 people you're protecting throughout the nights. Throughout the nights, heading to the patient hub, they will give you different pieces of information as the game goes on. On this first night, they don't tell you anything since they've been told they can't yet, probably by whoever put them here. This is such a cool and interesting integration into this game, and I think this is one of the big reasons why this game in particular is so underrated. Night 2 is where this game really starts to get real, introducing the first main threat of the game, Busted. Inside of your monitor, you'll notice the left half that I haven't really mentioned. Well, I'm about to mention it. You'll notice that it only has 3 cameras, but don't let that fool you. Busted will move around the cameras, not only trying to get to you, but to get to the captives as well. If at any point you can't find him on your cameras, that means he's in your office. Your office, by the way, is another thing I've neglected to mention. There are 4 entrances to your office, 2 on each side. You have the 2 obvious hallways in front of you, and then the 2 holes in your walls to the sides of you. Busted is very quiet, so you will have to make sure you're tracking him. Once Busted enters your office, you will have to scare him away with the light. Now, You may think, like most FNAF games, that we'd be given a flashlight, but no, that'd be too easy. In Project Readjusted 3, you're given a fucking glow stick to defend yourself. You know, one of those crack and shake things? Yeah, that's our main means of defense. When Busted is in your office, you have to hold the glow stick on him to scare him away, but there's a catch. Your glow stick cannot be used for very long at all. It has a very short lifespan, so you have to check really fucking quickly. Obviously, if you don't, you'll die. But if you remember, I mentioned Busted being able to attack the captives as well. While watching Busted on your cameras, you may notice that on any of the three, he may get a bit too close to some of the patient doors. If he does, that's how you know he's about to attack them. When you see him doing this, you must ring the bell on your desk. The noise will attract him to your office and away from the patients. Something super interesting about Busted attacking patients is that if he kills one, you don't lose, and it will actually make the remaining nights easier since you'll have less mouths to feed. However, as I'm sure you could have guessed, if a patient dies, they will never come back throughout the rest of the game. That means no more talking to them in the patient hub at the end of the nights. And of course, if you let all 3 patients die, then you will lose the game. This right here is one of the coolest mechanics I've ever seen in a FNAF game. Project Readjusted 3 is literally just being placed in a saw trap, really. In the post-night 2 minigame, we talk with the other guards about what we saw. They mentioned this is the second time this has happened. Walking up to the stage, we find another dead child, presumably killed by Buster. We're told to check the office for anything else, and we do. Upon finding nothing, we walk back, only to see the ghost of some unknown spirit that looks like Finn walking away.
I started seeing some weird things recently. They were purple weird things. It got closer as I blinded myself, but as I looked at it, it faded away. I don't know what to do! At least the leader himself isn't down here. He is very strict. He would be looking at me, making sure I was staying put and acting appropriately. He threatened to stop liquids from coming into my room if I didn't listen. He really wants us to go his way, so just send us supplies like he wants, at least when he is nearby. As long as he doesn't notice you aren't doing what he wants, you should be fine.
This place is a crazed house, and it's all your fault. I can't believe this! You better get out of here in the end. With me alive!
I've started hearing screams. It sounded like it came from a room adjacent to mine. Maybe I'm hallucinating. After all, we are under that old building. You know it had the fume problem, right? Surely you do. You used to work there. You told us all about you. My sister used to work there, but she hasn't touched it since. I think I've figured out why now. Just don't forget about your main threat, but don't let yourself get too paranoid about it. You got this.
On night 3, we get introduced to the last threat this game has to offer, the purple hallucinations, explained by the fact that there are strange fumes coming from the facility above. These hallucinations act as a nuisance, but a nuisance you're going to want to maintain. They can appear in any of your cameras or in your office, and they're very quiet. If they're on your cameras, you have to stare at them, and if they're in your office, you have to flash your glow stick at them. They will never kill you themselves, but they will scare the patients if you don't get rid of them. And if the patients get scared, they'll scream, and Busted will kill them. Not at all a difficult threat, but an annoying one nonetheless. The game doesn't really start to get too difficult yet at this point, so let's just move on to the post-night 3 minigame. In the post-night 3 minigame, we really just want to get out of the building at this point. We meet a guard who says that the crowd outside is still going spastic. As we try to walk outside, I'm assuming we start hallucinating? I'm not really sure because I have no idea what else I'm looking at could possibly even be. And the minigame comes to a close.
I'm too paranoid. You need to just get us out of here. The creatures are multiplying. Just more staring. Listen out for a squeal if something goes wrong over here. Those purple figures always come for us. Just make sure to get rid of them, please.
What's going on over on your end? I keep hearing such strange noises. If you want something out of me, you better keep me satisfied. I don't want whatever is coming for you near me. Ring the bell you were given if one of them is heading to my room, I want to ring that bell all the time, since it is causing noises, of course. Don't be stupid.
Hey, I still can't talk about what I know yet, but I think I know something that may help you in your endeavors. I know some of the quirks of that thing that is hunting you right now. It's very stealthy. You need to keep an eye on it all the time. It may hide in various spots, so make sure to be up to snuff with your surroundings. I don't know much about its chip data, though. I only ever overheard my sister read out some blueprints she picked up on her last workday a few years ago.
Night 4 doesn't introduce anything new, however I do want to take this time to mention a mechanic this game has that makes the entire experience way more difficult than it would normally be. Switching cameras. I know, that may sound like a mechanic that most people wouldn't even think twice about, but it's on this night that Busted can start to get pretty quick when moving around. So quickly moving through the cameras will become important. However, even though there's only 3 cameras, switching through them quickly can prove to be quite nerve-wracking. You cannot click any camera at any time. You can only move to cameras adjacent to the camera you're currently on, which means if you're on camera 1 and want to get to camera 3, you will first have to click on camera 2. Typically, this wouldn't be an issue, but you have to wait for a static animation to play each time you switch a camera before you can switch it again. Sure, the animation itself isn't very long, but when you have to switch as much as you do, that time will quickly add up. Overall, this is more of a nitpick than anything, but it is something I noticed during my playthrough, which you can see on my second channel, Dxtr Black. The post-night 4 minigame is a little bit weird. We play as the ghost we saw at the end of the post-night 2 minigame. We walk around the building, talking to children and guards, hearing messages like, "I blame you," and "How can we punish you?" Eventually, we find the body of another child. We say that we can restore it, and upon coming into contact, we get the message, "You must kill them for me."
Just one more to go. Once you left last night, I heard a strange tumbling noise outside. It was metallic and heavy. I don't know what it was, but it may be coming for you this time. Nothing rings a bell, but every time I heard some alarm, it would scamper. I don't think whatever it was likes noise. You have something to play noise? Yes. Please use that to keep yourself safe, but only if it sounds like it's coming close. Using noise at the wrong time may cost you.
You better get me out of here ASAP! I'm done playing these games. If it weren't for that guy holding a pistol to my hand for telling you my information early, I would have been long gone. Get it together! I'm tired of talking to you. Get on with it!
I heard some ruckus outside, friend. I recognized the weird noise pattern from the debugging process from upstairs. Someone was altering the mascot's code. I know this just because of my sister's curiosity. She brought back some pink robot from her workplace to show me how messed up her work environment was. That thing was tossed in the end. It couldn't move regardless, but the same debugging process intro pattern she used was similar to the one I heard upstairs last night. I can only assume that the two systems are related, most likely by the same manufacturer. All I know is that those old models never liked being looked at after some wear and tear. We flashed a light on the pink thing and it sparked a little. It was a very strange find indeed. Well, I hope you can use this information to your advantage tonight. Let's hope we can see the sun once more.
Night 5 introduces one final threat. I know guys, I've been lying constantly throughout this video, but I prefer to call it keeping you on your toes. The final threat introduced is Subject Model 3A, being another annoying character. He will wander around your cameras and you just have to make sure you're not looking at him. If you look at him for too long, I'm assuming you can guess what happens to you. Major bun pounding, salad tossing, you get it, don't look at him. Overall, he really doesn't add anything new to the mix, really just making it more annoying to keep track of Busted. But if you can complete it, we'll move on to the final minigame. In this final minigame, we play as a child, walking around the restaurant following what appears to be the ghost of a child. We follow them into the back room where the first kid was killed and speak to one of the animatronics. They apologize for what they did to us, probably in reference to killing us. They said their chip made them do it, and explained that someone else is pulling the strings and making the robots kill people. It ends off by telling us we will never see it again and to leave. Then the minigame comes to a close.
Andrew Vargas. It seems you have found your way. We cannot say we are surprised at your feat, especially considering your perseverance was quite equal to your past endeavors. You found your sources, exactly what you wanted. Though, did you ever think to look for more data you could use towards your search? The patients you have saved do not hold all of the information, but just enough for you to draw a plausible conclusion. Regardless of your intentions with the data you hold, your time here is over. You have what you came for, but do you feel empty with what you hold? That is a question that will be left in the air for you to grasp. For now, you may take your prized patients outside of this facility with you. Until you find your true desire and recollection, we thank you for playing our game.
I can't believe it! You did it? I'm free from this place? Oh, I must tell you what I know. Well, okay. I was a producer for one of the most popular animatronic performer shows a few years back. I was vital, but I got to the point where I knew too much, and that is how I wound up here. This man was someone I used to work with. He created these things for his own entertainment business, but he eventually took it too far. He created a powerful computer to control all of his creations from a distance, with whatever behavior he wanted. He always left his plans on his work desk, but one day he felt like something was off. Some grew suspicious of his projects, myself included, but I never took it as far as this one group of people. They were dedicated to finding his grand computer. They went as far as setting up hidden cameras around the building to track anything they could, anything that could leave a trace back to its whereabouts. But they never found it, because the man attacked and killed one of them. I saw it on old discarded footage. That is all I know. I hope this helps you.
It took you long enough? Let's make this conversation quick. I was one of the construction employees set to renovate the supply and storage facility for future use. It was gonna be under some childish name like Busters, I think. I was the only one that showed up to the job early, like always. I got to one of the storage trucks I left outside, and that's where my life took a turn. They had a rotting corpse and dismantled robots in that truck, man. A rotting corpse. You could never understand how disgusting that was to see face to face. Sucker fell right out of the truck too, like it was last in line. It was in some blue wreck of a mascot suit. It had a camera stuffed in its mouth. It was horrible. I think you get it now. I went to go get my bag and quit my job, but some gray thing grabbed me and pulled me deeper into that building. Next thing you know, I was dangling for my life. Awesome, right? Well, it pulled me past some satellite. It was covered in those dumb white masks you've seen. The same one the guy is wearing. It's all some weird gimmick. But I know what that gimmick is for. That satellite was being used to get that white rabbit robot back from the depths of the forest, right off of Brickview Boulevard. It had to have been made for that. I'm no fool. I knew about that white monster rumor, and I even went hunting for it one time with the boys. It has to be linked. That's all I got for you. We better not come into contact like this again.
I have to owe you something for your determination, my friend. I'm honored. Oh, right. I do owe you something. I have something to tell you. Before this, I was an aspiring mechanical engineer. Machines have always enticed me, so I had been studying it for months prior to this incident. As you know, my sister had worked at that old supply and storage facility years ago. She was my main inspiration for this interest of mine. That night, when she came home with that pink robot, changed everything for me. We dug into the hardware of the robot ourselves. Our father had some spare tools in the garage, so we didn't have to rip into it to damage the thing even worse. We found a lot of weird oddities. One of the most obvious ones was its back. It had the tips of endoskeleton fingers buried in the suit piece, like it was torn apart by one of its own. Another one was its eye. We found a serial number printed in a fine black font face in the back of the eyelids, but it only routed to a 404 page on our home computer. Lastly, it had a code written on the inside of each of the suit parts. It read Model Pound 3C. I don't know the significance of the C. Maybe it was part of a trio, unless there are models with parts 3D or more. We extracted the chip from the robot, though. It was in a very rough condition, but it was somewhat intact. It even had a USB slot in it, which was extremely new at the time. We plugged the cord into our home computer, but it pulled up a ton of strange prompts. We clicked through all of them and found a folder with many text files inside of it. A lot of it was just a garbled mess, but some had what seemed to be addresses. They were impossible for us to decipher fully. Was this animatronic generation holding locations? That's the strange part. What's even more strange is that it had a file named task.txt amongst all the other distorted file names. We opened it, but for some reason the USB had ejected itself. We tried plugging it back into the computer, but it wouldn't pick it up again. All I was able to see before it disconnected was something along the lines of, "He must see what I have done, and maybe he will realize he should have stayed by my side. I know what I'm doing." That's all that I know, friend. See you on the other side.
Project Readjusted's story doesn't throw the answers at you. It gives you pieces, conversations, job descriptions, weird one-liners, and you're meant to piece together what was really happening behind the walls of Buster's Diner World. But once you line everything up, the picture is pretty clear. Two employees start a project they don't fully understand. It gets out of control, and one of them ends up paying the price for it. It all starts after Buster shuts down. The public thinks the place is done, the animatronics are boxed up, and everyone has moved on. But Diner World Entertainment hasn't. They're still in the building, still tinkering, and still trying to push something forward. Something they only ever call the project. And at the center of it are two people, Andrew Vargas and his co-worker, Matthew. The two are exploring the closed building long after hours, checking the animatronics, looking through old hardware, and trying to locate something hidden deep inside the cast. Something the company wants extremely badly. A special chip connected to a hostile presence in the animatronics. They can't pull it out safely, they can't study it while it's roaming, and they can't risk handling it directly. So their entire plan is built around one thing: lure the entity into range, pull the chip, replace it, and get out. But they can't do it themselves. They need someone to sit in the office every night, act like a regular night guard, and unintentionally draw the animatronics towards them so Andrew and Matthew can track the patterns. That's where Hayden comes in. On paper, Hayden is just watching the cameras for 6 short nights. In reality, he's bait. Everything he sees, Buster, Glancer, Redeemer, all of it is part of a larger plan to drag this thing out. And for the most part, the plan works. The animatronics are active, the patterns are recorded, the project moves into its second stage. But then something happens that completely derails Matthew. Someone else breaks into the building. A man who isn't supposed to be there. Someone snooping around who gets far too close to whatever Andrew and Matthew are doing. The fandom calls him the spy, and Matthew panics. Instead of letting their secret get out, he kills the intruder. Not an accident, a choice. And it's the moment everything changes. Andrew is horrified, Matthew goes quiet, and from that point on, the two of them aren't on the same page anymore. Not long after that, Matthew disappears. No goodbye, no confession, no explanation. He's just gone. And Andrew is left with two things: a project he no longer trusts, and a friend who might have destroyed himself trying to finish it. When Project Readjusted 2 begins, we're not playing as Hayden anymore. We're someone closer to the company, a technician finishing their final assignment for Diner World Entertainment. This job isn't about survival, it's about data. Watching animatronic behavior, tracking motion patterns, feeding information back into whatever the project is turning into. And in the background of all of this, someone, heavily implied to be Andrew, keeps repeating the same thoughts. He's been gone for so long. I need answers. Where did he go? The entire game feels like Andrew trying to keep the company satisfied while quietly searching for any clue about Matthew's disappearance. Meanwhile, the animatronics are no longer just mascots. They're infested, corrupted, wired shut, and torn open. the prototypes that were experimented on long after Buster's closed. The project has clearly moved forward, and whatever they pulled from those animatronics is now being pushed into something else, something bigger, something human. And Andrew eventually gets the lead he's been waiting for, something that points away from Buster's, away from the diner entirely, and into a new location, a facility the company is tied to, a place where living subjects are being kept alive for testing. And to follow this trial, Andrew makes a deal, a job offer he can't refuse, something that promises answers about Matthew at a cost. That's where Project Readjusted 3 picks up. Andrew is now inside this medical facility, sitting in a monitoring booth, watching over patients who can't leave their rooms. His job is to keep them alive by sending supplies down long, empty hallways, making sure they don't lose consciousness, and trying not to get killed by something stalking him in the dark. A twisted, hulking version of Buster that shouldn't even exist in a place like this. But the deeper Andrew goes, the more obvious it becomes that this facility is just the project's final phase. The animatronics were only the beginning. The chip, the patterns, the experiments. All of it was leading to human testing. And somewhere inside this building, one of the patients isn't just another victim. He's the thing Andrew has been searching for since the moment Matthew vanished. Matthew didn't run. He didn't escape. He didn't move on. He was taken, absorbed into the same project he helped build. In Project Readjusted 3, Matthew is the subjected member, a living test subject altered by the very experiments he and Andrew once tried to control. And that's the real truth behind Project Readjusted. A company digs up something dangerous hidden inside their animatronics. 2 employees tried to pull off a secret extraction. Someone dies, one of them vanishes, and years later, the entire operation has grown into a human experimentation program, with Matthew trapped at the center of it, and Andrew desperately trying to undo the damage. This game never spells everything out, and the dev has even said the full story was never completely written down, but from what everything we do see, the trilogy comes down to a single idea. They started the project together, Andrew survived it, Matthew didn't. But as far as I could gather, and as far as I'm aware, that's all Project Readjusted has to offer. There was supposed to be a final installment, Project Readjusted 4 Jet Black, but it was cancelled due to scheduling conflicts and the pair incident of Game Jolt, which I'm not going to dive into today. Maybe another time. Overall, I think each game in this series progressively got better and better. I think the story I was able to piece together is really interesting and very good, but I really wish it was more concrete so I didn't have to speculate as much as I did. Project Readjusted 3 is a phenomenal FNAF game and one of the most creative I've ever seen, and I highly recommend you give this series a try. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think Project Readjusted is actually just a confusing dumpster fire? Let me know in the comments below. In my 5 Nights at Maggie's video, I asked you guys which series you'd like to see me cover next, and my favorite comment is this one by Witchery. They said Tealerland, and while that's not really a series, it is a game I really loved and that I do have on my list to talk about on Dxtr White. IP crossovers is something that happens quite often in different forms of media, and Five Nights at Freddy's is no exception. We've seen classics such as Five Nights at Sonic's and Five Nights at Wario's. However, I'm sure you can think of many other crossovers this massive genre has. I've recently learned about a FNAF game that has a crossover with another massive horror piece of media, and I'm very excited to share with you my experience with said game today. This game is very cool and incredibly difficult, so strap in and join me today as we dive into the world of SCP The Endurance. When I first saw this game, I was really concerned that it was going to lean more into being a game like SCP Containment Breach instead of Five Nights at Freddy's. But luckily for me, I'm not going to have to bust through randomly generated rooms. Maybe in another video, I'll be forced to do that. But for now, yes, this game does follow the typical Five Nights at Freddy's formula. In SCP The Endurance, we play as a Class D personnel. For those of you unfamiliar with SCP, Class D personnel are the lowest level of individuals of the SCP Foundation, consisting mostly of death row inmates. They usually live in solitary confinement cells and are often tasked with doing very dangerous things that could easily get them killed. And of course, this game has us do just that. The game opens to an infomercial designed for these Class D personnel, offering all of them the chance for some major benefits if they take part in the Endurance program, which by the way is slang for kill yourself. We've all seen situations like this before in media, and it's honestly one of my favorite story structures, so I was pretty excited when I first saw this. The task we have to complete, of course, is surviving 6 nights while watching over a section of the facility, while 8 monsters try and mush up your insides and make a nice little inside soup. We obviously don't want that to happen, so what tools do we have at our disposal to prevent such a catastrophe from happening? Well, let's start with stuff you'll always be using that isn't character specific. To your right, you have a door that can be closed. Pretty standard FNAF stuff. The longer the door is closed, the more power it will consume. In front of you, there is a hallway that you can flash, exactly like FNAF 2, except this time around, when something is in the hallway, the most ear-grating PTSD-inducing sound of all time doesn't play. Of course, there's the camera system, which does something that makes my dick hurt when I see it. That being that the camera has multiple levels for you to look at. There's nothing wrong with this mechanic, by the way. Just thought I'd mention how it makes me want to shit out my own organs. And finally, you can turn off the power to both your cameras and the entire building. The reasons for doing both of these things will become important later, so for now, just don't worry about it. Actually, that's a lie. Nothing actually happens on night 1 as it's just introductory, so I actually want to take this time to talk about the fucked up shit that is this game's power supply. This game drains power so fast, it isn't even funny. This is to encourage you to shut off essential systems to save on that power, because if you don't, there is literally zero chance you will survive the later nights. Inside of the cameras, you have the ability to turn off your ventilation. This game takes place underground, so if it's off for too long, you'll just suffocate and die. But it will make your power drain slightly slower, and in a game where you'll be completing each night with single-digit power integers, that is huge. Obviously, that's also where shutting off your cameras comes into play, as that will also save some power for you. However, booting up the cameras does take about 3 seconds, and with how brutal this game gets with character speed on later nights, I promise you that 3 seconds is a lot of time to wait. However, shutting off the cameras will also be essential to actually surviving the nights in this game. Now is the time I should mention how you need to start each night, as it's not as simple as just listening to the phone call. Each night you will have to boot up the computer for the first time by using a password. This password is randomly generated each time you start up a night. So if you die on night 4, for example, when you retry night 4, the password will change yet again. Each night starts with you booting up the PC and typing in the password. I highly recommend that you Control A, Control C, and Control V the password at the start of the night as well, because if either you or something else shuts off the power to the facility and you have to turn it back on, you will have to re-enter this password. So being able to copy and paste it is obviously a big time saver. We also have access to an SCP library where we can learn and read about the SCPs that we'll be encountering. Most of these entries are mainly for lore reasons, and in all honesty, I don't have a lot of interest in diving into the behaviors of each character, as it's literally pretty much just a wiki page. So I probably won't be doing that much in this video. I'm imagining most of you who are watching my channel frequently also probably know at least a little bit about SCPs anyways. Again, as I said, night 1 doesn't actually have any threats. You just get taught by the phone guy, Ronald, how to do everything you need to do, and that's about it. But now we can hop into night 2. And holy shit, this game goes from 0 to 80 really fucking fast. But hold up guys, I want to take a little break here to tell you that this video is sponsored by me. For those of you who didn't know, I have channel memberships. I would never ask anyone to do this as I don't even have any interesting perks attached, but if you really enjoy what I do and would like to support me a little bit extra, that's a great way to do it. Also, if you'd like to actually get something for your money in return, I have a merch store with some designs I commissioned from a fan, the same fan who actually drew these new character PNGs. So if you'd like to have my silly little demon character on your clothes, then that's a great place to go do that. And hey, if enough people end up liking that stuff, I will 100% get some more created in the future, and maybe even commission some more fan artists for some uniqueness in art styles. You can find the link to that in the description of this video. Sorry for the interruption, let's talk about the bullshit that this game has to offer. Night 2 introduces 5 characters. That is over half the fucking roster on Night 2. I'm going to start with the easiest characters and work my way to the hardest. Strap in because this is going to get interesting. By far, the easiest character to deal with in my opinion is SCP-860-2, who I will just be referring to as SCP-860. 860 is the only character that uses your door. It will appear outside of the door far away in the trees. Which, by the way, side note, I don't really know why there are trees outside of this door. We are underground, but whatever. Throughout the night, it will approach your door until it is right up next to it. When it is, all you have to do is close the door and wait to hear it run away. If this door is closed for too long, the power to the building will be shut off and you will have to completely reboot, re-entering the password to the computer and all. I believe this is the easiest character simply because of how infrequently he attacks in comparison to the other characters. You may see him 5 or 6 times a night, which is a godsend compared to some of the other assholes we'll be talking about in a bit. The next easiest character in my opinion is SCP-066. 066 is just a giant pile of meat with some eyeballs. 066 by itself will not actually be able to end your runs. Instead, it cosplays as Satan. It will attack from the vent on your ceiling. At random times, you may see the vent on your ceiling open up. When you see this, you will have to simply click the vent to close it, and that's all. If you leave it open for too long, 066 will drop into your office and stay there for the rest of the night. While there, it will slowly increase the AI values of all of the other characters, which, by the way, has the chance to increase their AI values over the max 20, which, yes, will still make them harder. It also has the random chance to play sounds at 140 decibels, so just like, really don't let him into your office. You may be wondering why I've chosen to call 066 more difficult than 860, despite the fact that all you have to do is mindlessly click when you hear a noise. Well, that's because 066 is probably the fastest character in the entire game. On later nights, you will have less than 2 seconds to react and close the vent. And of course, it itself doesn't kill you. The ramping AI of the other characters probably will. Of course, that's unless you're Frogger and beat the 820 mode with 066 in the office the entire night. That guy's a madman. Next, we'll talk about SCP-096, arguably one of the most popular SCPs of all time. SCP-096 has the chance to spawn literally anywhere in the entire building, whether that be on any of the cameras or even directly in your office. Wherever it happens to be, all you have to do is stop looking at it. If it's in your office, flip up and down the camera quickly. If it's in the camera, either switch cameras or pull the camera down. While yes, 096 is not a problem by itself, it's in combination with how hectic and stressful the rest of the game gets, which is the reason I think 096 is as annoying and difficult as it is. SCP-106 is the next degenerate I'd like to talk about. This is the pocket dimension asshole, by the way, if you were curious. Occasionally, you will both hear and see 106 in your office. When you do, you'll have to put on the mask. Oh yeah, you have a mask, by the way. I know I forgot to mention that. I just wanted to keep you on your toes. And I totally didn't just forget it existed until I started talking about 106. So shut up. If you don't put the mask on fast enough, it appears one of 2 things could happen, I think. Maybe it's every time, but I've seen this not happen to some people on deaths to 106 multiple times. When you become caught by 106, it has a chance to teleport you to a pocket dimension. We're in the fucking guy that we're in the guy that does fucking genjutsu, aren't we? Oh my, what the fuck? What? Yo, this is sick as fuck. Oh, he dead. Oh, he dead. Where the game is put into a 3D environment where you have to complete some parkour across some rocks to escape. If you do manage to escape, then congrats, you get to continue the night. But of course, chances are you'll have spent too long in the pocket dimension that you'll probably die upon coming back. This pocket dimension also has some interesting secrets by itself, but I'll be talking about that a bit later in the video. Sitting there doing nothing in the mask is obviously not something you're going to want to be doing while being ass pounded by 7 other characters. So that puts 106 pretty high up on the difficulty chart in my eyes. SCP-173 is by far the most grueling and annoying character in this entire game. He acts as this game's main reason for using the cameras, which also really sucks because in most cases you'd prefer to have your cameras off just because of how horrifically quickly the power drains. 173 will slowly move throughout the building until it gets to your vent. You may notice to your left a giant vent is open on the wall. Yeah, if he gets there, you're dead. So, how do you stop him? Well, by staring at him on the cameras, of course. 173 has this super awesome and totally not penis tearing attribute where it will never move backwards and only forwards. So you really have to make sure you have your eyes on this thing the entire night. However, I should mention that once 173 gets to your office, that it's not an immediate game over. Oh, hey, I'm not blinking. I am not blinking and I'm looking right at you. Looking right at you. There's actually 2 phases it will have to get through before it can slither inside of you like one of those parasites that will swim up your urethra if you piss in a gross lake. I don't know. In true 173 fashion, if you're looking at him, he won't move. But if you open the cameras, turn to the side to deal with 860 and the door, or anything else that blocks your view of 173, it will move through its phases before blowing up your anus. Again, 173 is easily the most difficult character throughout this entire game, only being rivaled by one other asshole who we'll talk about later. But for now, if you can deal with all of that bullshit combined, you will successfully beat Night 2. Yeah, did you forget we were only talking about Night 2? Yeah, there's still 4 more of these, so strap in. Night 3 introduces one new threat. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. It introduces the remaining 3 because fuck you. Those characters being SCP-049, SCP-1048, and SCP-079. Only one of these characters is actually a big issue, so let's talk about the less annoying 2 first. Let's start with what I feel is the easiest to deal with of these 3, SCP-1048. It's just a teddy bear, but a teddy bear that can move, to be fair. It takes advantage of your hallway. Appearing in it throughout the night, it will try to enter your office and murder the shit out of you. All you have to do is keep your flashlight on him to push him backwards. Not hard at all, just another power waster of a character. SCP-049 is the Plague Doctor, and I honestly wish I had the plague while playing this game so that I had a good excuse to just kill myself rather than continuing. 049 makes use of the 2 lockable doors on the bottom layer of the cameras. You can only lock one of these doors at a time, and thankfully doing so doesn't waste any power, and they don't unlock if the PC is shut off. If you see 049 at either door, simply lock it and it'll be no problem. The actual difficulty of 049 just comes in the likelihood that you will forget he even exists, and only remember once you find him in your office. And finally, the second most difficult character in SCP The Endurance is SCP-079. This guy is just a little quirky fella, really. He's just a bored little guy that really wants to play tic-tac-toe with you. What is this? What is that? Yes, I'm serious. There is a special panel to the left of your office. Throughout the night, 079 will play games of tic-tac-toe with you. Now, you may be a little inclined to completely pummel this stupid fucking computer's ass while playing this game with it. But I would actually advise against that, as if you lose too many games or win too many games against it, it'll get pissed off and start fucking with your lights and doors, which will probably end up leading to a death. So it's actually the best practice to just constantly draw against 079 every time you play. And there you have it. That is every single character in SCP The Endurance and how they work, all introduced on the 3rd night. And it's only going to continue to get more and more soul-sucking as your playthrough goes on. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I couldn't complete Night 5. I put in a lot of attempts, but as I've mentioned multiple times in the past, I'm very bad at FNAF games, and I just couldn't beat it. I'm sure if I continued to pour in attempts that eventually I would complete it, as I did get to 5 AM a decent handful of times. I still have no desires to spend hours trying. I'd much prefer to just talk about it. After completing Night 5, we get the special meal we were mentioned to get at the beginning of the game in the infomercial. But guess what? We're still depressed because we're still in solitary confinement, and I'm about to tear my hair out, except I've already torn all the hair out of my head, so you'll have to use your imagination to figure out where I'm tearing the rest of my hair from. However, we're not done talking about this game quite yet, as there still are some cool things that it has to offer. Mainly, now is the time I want to talk about SCP-106, or Larry's, Pocket Dimension, and how important it is for unlocking both Night 6 and this game's secret ending. The first step to unlocking the secret ending is finding the 3 burnt pages in Larry's Pocket Dimension. There are skeletons all around this dimension, and every time you enter, a piece of a burnt page will appear next to one of them, which, yes, means you will have to go into his pocket dimension multiple times to acquire them all. The platforming in this game does make me want to skin a puppy alive, but hey, it's a FNAF game, not a platformer, so I guess that means something. Oh, and you want to know the best part? The pocket dimensions are totally random. So you could get the pocket dimension to spawn the same page multiple times, which means in theory, it could take hours for you to ever be able to collect all three. And you can't do the secret ending until you get all three of them, even though the code on it doesn't change. So that's realistically probably the worst part of this entire game. Spoiler alert, FNAF fans aren't a super huge fan of RNG. Who would have thought? Once you get all three pages and escape, you will be able to put them together in your office to reveal the code PGF4B. Typing this code into the computer instead of the one on the sticky notes will unlock Night 6. Night 6 is where you can get the secret ending. Not only is Night 6 hard as fuck, but getting the secret ending only makes Night 6 even harder. Once in Night 6, you will want to once again type in the burnt note code PGF4B. After it boots, you'll want to type in the command run power manager. This will give you a special tab on your second monitor that you can use to control all of the power in the building. This is where the secret ending makes Night 6 very hard. Obviously, Night 6 by itself is already difficult, having several threats to keep track of and having to react very quickly to all of them. However, the additional tasks this secret ending requires only serves to add more confusion and stress to your plate. In this new Power Manager menu, you will be able to click through every room of every floor in the facility. It looks a lot more confusing than it really is. The only sections that matter are the rooms that contain the elevators. You'll have to go to each elevator room and turn the power to each of them on by manually typing in codes. This section heavily reminds me of some of the tasks you're required to do in Banshee, another FNAF game I've covered on this channel. You should definitely watch that video after this one if you haven't already, by the way. This is the main reason I think this secret ending is so stressful. There is already so much bullshit happening at the same time that to add in precision typing on top of that really makes for a super tense experience. And while no, I never did it myself, I applaud anyone who was actually able to pull this insane shit off. After turning on the power to each elevator floor, our character will actually speak.
It worked! I can finally get the hell out of here.
Which is where I learned that we play as a female throughout this game. Not that that really matters, just something I wasn't expecting. We get a final cutscene of our inmate leaving the building, avoiding all the characters she'd been going up against thus far, and escaping the facility, only to find out that she was right in the sights of an SCP worker's gun. We never get to see if the bullet hits her, but we can only hope it didn't and that she was finally able to escape. But don't click off the video yet, you little piece of shit! I see you checking how much longer there is trying to fuck up my retention. Stop it! You stop it! Naughty! Anyways, I've still got something else I want to talk about in this game that I think is really cool. So, it's becoming more and more common for FNAF games to integrate Game Jolt achievements. I think that's awesome. I think achievement hunting is super cool. But something I notice about a lot of these FNAF game achievements is that they're boring. Oh, beat night 1, beat night 5, beat night 6, beat all 20 mode. Stuff you would imagine people are already doing, which I feel makes them not feel like achievements a lot of the time. SCP The Endurance also has these achievements, except I've noticed that it also has a lot of super fun ones. So I'd like to dedicate this section to talking about those achievements. The first achievement I want to mention is called Seriously How. It can be achieved by dying on night 1. You may be wondering how that's even possible, considering there are no characters active and you have unlimited power. Well, there still is one way to kill yourself during night 1, and that's by turning off the ventilation and suffocating yourself. If you do that, ta-da! You've got yourself an achievement. It's a goofy one, yes, but I still think it's pretty cool. The next achievement I want to mention is called Ah, There You Are. This achievement can be obtained by allowing SCP-1048 to completely enter your office. Once he does, if you spam click his nose enough, you'll get this achievement. Yes, quite a few of these are pretty silly by the way, but that's why I like them. The next achievement is called Oh Whoa, What's This? Hey, shut up. I just told you they were silly. This one can be achieved by simply using the command commands or help in the terminal. You're a femboy, aren't you? Don't lie. I said oh whoa and I saw your little stupid ass fucking light up, freak. The next interesting achievement is called 1 Step Forward, 2 Steps Back, and can be achieved by collecting one of the burnt notes in 106's pocket dimension and proceeding to fall out of the world and die. Interesting that they chose to call that an achievement, considering you didn't actually achieve anything at all. There are also 2 achievements that can be incredibly difficult to achieve. The first of which is called Catch Me If You Can. You get this achievement by surviving the night after aggroing SCP-096, which isn't necessarily too hard if you aggro him right at the end of the night, but you also have to hope that you can find him right at the end of the night. The other, much more difficult achievement is Staring Contest. This one is ass, I can't even lie to you. You have to let SCP-173 into your office for at least 1 entire hour of the night, so 1 minute real time. This is disgusting because you literally can't look away from him. And not looking away from him for a minute will require a good deal of luck to not get butt banged. There's also a really silly achievement called L+ ratio, wherein you complete night 3 without ever looking at the cameras, which I'm not going to lie, just sounds like complete hell. And finally, the last achievement in the game, which I would actually say is worthy of getting a trophy, is called My Goals Are Beyond Your Understanding, which is achieved on night 6 if you turn off every single light in the power manager, then shut off literally everything in the office that you can, leaving you completely vulnerable in literally every way possible. Doing this isn't hard. Doing this on night 6 definitely is. But as far as I'm aware, that's all SCP The Endurance has to offer. Overall, I think this game is incredibly solid. It was in development by one person for over 8 years, and I think it turned out great. Yes, it's really hard. Yes, I think the burnt notes being RNG is bullshit. And yes, I think the game giving you little to no hints for anything in the game is pretty ass. Overall, I still think this experience was a good one. I think this is probably one of the most high quality FNAF games I've seen in terms of how much dedication was poured into it, and I highly recommend you guys go and give it a try. In my Fredbear and Friends reboot video, I asked you guys what your least favorite mechanic in a FNAF game was, and my favorite answer was this one by Durgiz Nibble. They said having to reboot everything in FNAF 3 whenever you do anything, and I totally agree. I think that reboot panel is one of the most miserable things in any official FNAF game ever, and I would rather use steel wool as a toothbrush than ever have to deal with it again. The question of this video is, what is your favorite SCP and why? With the question of the video being asked, subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it a lot. I've been Dxtr, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!